Yani kabisa, alafu tufanye kazi pamoja.
Mani tulikuwa tukivuka hiyo bridge ni kama damu inakauka kidogo, ukifika huko ndiena na yayuka. Lakini kwa sasa kila kitu ni shwari. Walipoanza kurudisha bunduki haramu wakaingiana na jamii kwa njia ambayo ni mzuri.
Area leadership called for more partnership in working towards restoration of peace in the area.
It is indeed possible for this nation to be fed by productivity of Kerio Valley and the people living here.
Ile mission iko hapa, ina hakika kwa miaka michache watu watakuja kuona mabadiliko kwenye sehemu hii.
Separately, leaders from Laikipia County are calling for unity and an end to bandit attack in the region.
Sisi tumeamua angalau tusimamishe mambo mengine yote, tusimamishe mambo ya mabarabara na maendeleo mengine yote, tuhakikishe watu wetu wanalala na hako na amani.
Serikali ya Mheshimiwa Rais William Ruto, ile kikosi alidisband ya special unit, si mnajua hiyo, angewasha tu itembea hapo Olmora nifanye hiyo kazi. We need it here.
Now, former Marakwet West Member of Parliament William Kisang has won the United Democratic Alliance UDA party ticket during nominations for the Elgeyo Marakwet Senate race. In the hotly contested race, Kisang floored 20 other aspirants to be declared winner by UDA County Returning Officer Nicodemus Bore. He garnered 28,136 votes.
Former Marakwet West Member of Parliament William Kisang trounced 20 other aspirants on Saturday to win the UDA's senatorial primaries for Elgeyo Marakwet County. Kisang garnered 28,126 votes ahead of his rivals Tim Kipchumba and Jonathan Nui, who garnered 26,756 and 26,735 votes respectively.
We are all loyal party members of UDA. And we were very many actually. 21 of us showed interest to serve the county of Elgeyo Marakwet County as the senator. It means everybody was very keen to be a servant of the people.
The exercise has been peaceful, it has been flowing, just a few challenges with the transport, the logistics on transport in places like Tot, where accessing the Tot ward, where accessing the farthest corners was a bit of a challenge, but we have tried to do the best that we could in the circumstances.
The by-election was occasioned by the resignation of Cabinet Secretary for Roads Kipchumba Murkomen after being appointed by President William Ruto. In Garissa, the race for township parliamentary seat is taking shape, with clans going for their best candidates for the seat. This follows the resignation of Eden Duale to become Defense Cabinet Secretary.
Mimi nawaambia wakazi wa Garissa ambayo wamenichagua katika mara 4 na katika vyama ambaye tulikuwa na Mheshimiwa Rais, hii kiti tafadhali mujenge Mheshimiwa Deko.
Sisi kama Garissa Town tunashukuru serikali, nashukuru chama yangu, na mimi nitahakikisha mkisimama na mimi inshallah tutadeliver hii seat kwa jina ya UDA.
The Ali Yahan Community Council of Elders endorsed Nasir Dolal Mohammed as their sole candidate for the seat. Nasir, who is commonly referred to as Joffrey by his supporters, is a seasoned politician who has been contesting since 2013 and always coming second to Duale, who had held the seat since 2007. Other aspirants in the race are former Garissa gubernatorial candidate Deko Barrow, former Fafi Member of Parliament Abdi Karim Osman, former woman representative Mulki Wasame, and former Assembly Majority Leader Mohamed Gabo.
The Ananda Maga Mission has urged the Kenyan government and other well-wishers to intervene and support millions of Kenyans who are being affected by drought. While distributing foodstuff, the mission said it will open more feeding centers in other parts of the country to reach as many victims of hunger as possible. This and more in our donation news roundup.
Speaking while distributing foodstuff and clothing to residents from the informal settlement of Kawangware, Kibagare and Kangemi in Nairobi, the mission chairman Dinesh Kumar said there are plans to open more feeding centers in other parts of the country to shield more needy people in the society. Kumar said that unless there is urgent intervention in the prevailing drought, lives will be lost.
We are trying to help in all ways in 5 basic minimum requirements of life, that is food, clothes, shelter, education and medicine. In each need, we are here to come forward and help the people.
Elsewhere, at least 73 pupils have one less thing to worry about after a community-based organization donated foodstuff as they sit for their KCPE examination that kicks off on Monday. Young African Women Initiative Executive Director Fidelis Karanja said the move is aimed at helping children from humble backgrounds who are the majority in public schools and who cannot afford to buy lunch during the exams.
Bringing food here for them to have lunch for those 3 days, at least they are sure of something that they can have. Even if they don't take breakfast, they can come and take the 10 o'clock tea. Even if they don't take lunch, after exams, they can have lunch at school and go home and be able to revise for their exams.
Finally, more than 10,000 school-going girls from underprivileged settings in the country are set to benefit from a free sanitary towel distribution program that has been rolled out by different charity organizations. Rotary Club held a charity golf tournament in Machakos County to raise about 3 million to help purchase sanitary towels that will keep the girls in school for at least 1 year.
We have so far impacted 2,000 girls. Our goal is to impact over 10,000 girls by July next year.
A man from Kiambogo village in Elmentaita Ward, Nakuru County, is seeking for financial assistance to undergo colonoscopy to determine his cause of ailment. Joseph Matu has been oozing blood in his stool, a condition that has persisted for the last 4 years, leading to further complications. Let's get the details.
From a distance, Joseph Matundungu holds a straight face, hiding the reality of his predicaments from the public. But under him is a life of sorrow that has now become a norm and a reality with no option but to adopt it. The 48-year-old man from Kiambogo in Nakuru County has been suffering from inflammatory bowel disease with a long-standing history of fresh blood in his stool.
Nikienda choo inatoka na damu. Nikiwa napomnya na damu. Sasa kutoka hapo 19 sasa ikaanza kutoka damu peke yake. Bleeding peke yake. Sasa hii damu inatoka peke yake, hata nikienda kwa barabara na zingine inatoka peke yake.
Bila hata kuweza kuziona.
Hata jada choo. Sasa zingine hata pale nipepitia hapo nikikaa chini hapo chini. Unakuta kama kitu imejijiwa hapo.
It is a condition he says has progressively worsened over the last 4 years, leading to even more complications.
Damu na moika peke yake. Hata niko kwa barabara damu na mwagika. Kutoka hapo niko na shida ya moyo na pressure na masikio na macho. Na tena mikia hii ya shingo yote na shida yote. Na tena saa zingine nakojoa damu.
The medical superintendent at Nakuru County Referral and Teaching Hospital has recommended colonoscopy to determine the abnormalities he is facing.
Familia ameshindwa. Ameshindwa nikusaidia sasa kwa sababu vile nimekimbia sana. Sababu sasa nimetumia 1,000 sasa nimetumia karibu 1,100 saa hii kabla ya tibiwa sasa.
Ndungu is now appealing for financial help to raise approximately 500,000 to cater for tests at Kenyatta National Hospital to determine the cause of his condition to enable correct diagnosis. Contributions can be channeled through Joseph Matundungu's personal M-Pesa number 0705 863357 0705 863357.
Well, that story brings us to the end of the news this morning, but it is not the end of the news for the day. Remember, you can still catch up with the news updates later on in our subsequent bulletins. The major story today really will be about the national examinations which are taking place today, the CAPSEA, the KCP and KCC examinations, 3 national examinations taking place simultaneously. So we have our reporters already out there trying to collect that news for you, so we'll be updating you on that. that. And still, World Cup Eco KBC, we're not forgetting that. Do keep a date with us. Yesterday, Spain versus Germany, 1-1. They drew. Today, do not miss Cameroon versus Serbia. That will be at 1 p.m. We hope that Cameroon at least today will win and keep the hopes of Africans high. Ghana also takes on South Korea. So that will be a tough game also for the Ghanaians, but we hope that they'll be able to score at around 7 p.m. So thank you so much for staying tuned. We still have a lot lined up for you. My colleagues are still here with me on Good Morning Kenya. In the Headlines is coming up next.
Na zile ambavyo vitakupa tabasamu tosha.
Hana mapenzi wala mahaba, mtoto mbaya sana huyu. What did you just say?
Sio tamthilia tu.
And why you're saying that yeah.
Ni tamthilia tosha.
Alinishika hivi. What?
Sio burudani tu, ni burudani tosha.
It is the day that the Lord has made.
Na sinema bomba.
Kabisa kama uelewi kitu inafaa uelewe.
Na mada za kusisimua. KBC Channel 1, shirika la utangazaji Kenya.
I was part of the team ilitumwa ku take out Burhan. Nilikaa for 5 years, nika study the man. Na tukaenda tukijua kwamba mambo yalikuwa nzuri. All I ask is you let me right my wrongs and give me an opportunity to bring Burhan down for good.
Na una hakika hiki kikosi chako kitaweza kufanya hivyo?
Yes, sir.
Na hii kikosi chako kuna kina nani?
Sergeant Farah, a.k.a.
Stingray,
Intelligence. Kopro Ibrahim, a.k.a.
Mongoose,
Intelligence. Kopro Katana, a.k.a.
Panther,
Medic.
Cover me!
PC Adhiambo, a.k.a.
Maliet,
Machine Gun. PC Kibet, a.k.a.
University,
Sniper.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Nasikia wasewa sahihi tunakuanga wadedi.
Tatu ni polisi kama sisi. Chini, yes, chini.
Ukelipa bidhaa kama kawa kuna maswali.
Return to base. I repeat, return to base.
right, let's take a look at the newspapers here. Let me start with the Star newspaper. On the front page, fireworks as Raila calls for anti-Ruto meetings. Fireworks as Raila calls for anti-Ruto meetings. Azimio chief sharply differs with president on petition to remove IEBC bosses. That is what's on the front page here. The rallies, according to the itinerary, will go countrywide, starting with Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru, Kisumu, and Kakamega. Of course, Raila spoke yesterday in Kisumu. Graffiti artist sues Karua for 2.1 million shillings for campaign ads. Details shortly. CS forms a team to probe fish deaths in Lake Victoria. And of course, that happened sometimes last week. Oh yeah, there you have it. Sometimes last week, where fish farmers actually said that they underwent a lot of losses due to fish deaths in the lake. Private insurers, why we don't cover mental health? According to an explainer here, it says that most insurance companies don't understand financial implications, so they introduce sublimits for mental health by saying that you are only covered up to, for example, 100,000 shillings. So that is the reason why most insurance companies don't cover mental health. And medics say that costs that scare insurers based on patient stay at hospital. Mumias sugar staff seek Ruto's help to stop plant eviction. The workers claim that Sarai Group and Kenya Commercial Bank are planning to evict them from their staff quarters or houses, if you like, despite the outstanding debts amounting to 2.3 billion shillings. The former employees who spoke during a special annual general meeting of Mumias Sugar Factory workshop said that farmers, and of course farmers brought together from the three, as well, all the 300 stakeholders, said that they should be paid their dues before being asked to leave the premises. 61 couples exchanged vows in historic Teso mass wedding. It took Bishop Kadima 3.5 hours to administer the vows. 61 couples. The first of its kind ceremony was presided over by Bungoma Catholic Diocese Bishop Mark Kadima. Organizers say that it was meant to ensure more couples in Chelelemuk Parish in Teso North Sub-County fulfill their matrimonial sacrament as stipulated in the Bible. It took Bishop Kadima 3.5 hours to administer the wedding vows to the 61 couples. It must be a lot of work.
Has to be.
It has to be. I mean,
that's a lot of people. He has broken a record.
Exactly, 61 couples. So 61 males, 61 females.
Oh, yeah, that's male and female.
Yes.
Per couple. Okay, yeah. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And it reminds me of I'm not sure when, but it said that the police are also to have mass wedding to ensure that they promote family values. So any police officers, those that are not married, will be there will be an event, a mass wedding held for them.
But then I wondered why the police, why not any other that was, can I say, targeted? Yeah, I also actually came across that also police officers will be, accorded mass weddings. So I was wondering why not any other group but police officers.
But think of it, it would be colorful. Imagine they come in their official uniform.
No.
Yeah, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But why? The question is why police officers? You can't compel someone to get married. I mean,
sure, it's a good question, but I really don't understand why. So maybe we will get to know later on.
Okay. All right, fireworks as Raila calls for anti-Ruto meetings. There's a showdown that looms between the opposition and the government after Azimio leader Raila Odinga announced the start of countrywide rallies to protest the planned removal of IEBC chiefs. The rallies, dubbed consultative meetings, could easily degenerate into street protests after the Azimio Brigade vowed to explore every avenue to stop the removal of the 4 commissioners with mass action on the cards. Now, President William Ruto has taken a firm stand against the 4 commissioners, saying that who he says are rogue and could possibly mobilize the police to foil the Raila meetings. We are just, waiting to see how this will pan out, having in mind that the four are still on the chopping board at Parliament. So, of course, Raila said that this regime, which came into power through rigging of the quote-unquote election, is now hell-bent on sending home the commissioners who stood firm on the platform of truth. We have said this is not going to be acceptable. So that is how it's going to be. Let's wait and see how things are going to unfold during the week. Steph.
All right. Let's take a look at what People Daily has for us. And on the front page, we have matters KCPE and the Kenya Primary School Examination Assessment that are taking place today. And the exam containers were to be open today at 6 a.m. to pave way for the distribution of examination materials to school, with Education CS Ezekiel Machogu to carry out the supervision from Mombasa. So we are yet to bring you updates on this as soon as we get them from our team who are on the ground. Still on the front page, why IEBC bosses could boycott probe. And this is on page 8 there. We are being told that IBC Vice Chair Cherera and Irene Masit, the commissioner, have been advised to ignore summons by the House. More into this is that one of the Azimio MPs leaked some information and sought anonymity, saying that lawyers of Azimio told the commissioners to not appear to the committee, as the committee lacks the mandate to investigate them. And reading from what it says here, House Committee lacks mandate to probe Cherera and Irene Masit, says a team of Azimio aligned advocates. So here you have to see if they will turn out or if they will follow the instructions of their lawyers. To other news, civil groups decry rising cases of gender violence. We are in the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, specifically for women, girls, and children. And here, the civil society organizations are concerned that the lack of proper enforcement of gender-responsive regulations is slowing down efforts to fight the escalating violation against women, girls, and children. What they're seeking is a review of the judicial system to fast-track cases and enhance access to justice for victims. Also, amend the Sexual Offences Act to make it more responsive to the social needs of victims. And also, the rights of men and boys are also being violated, with many victims remaining silent as perpetrators walk free. And this 16 days of activism, as I said earlier, will culminate on the 10th of December. That is the International Day for Human Rights. Moving on to see what other news we have here on matters health. Agency warns AIDS could hit nation harder in future. This is ahead of the World AIDS Day that is celebrated on 1st December. That will be on Thursday. And we have the National Syndemic Disease Control Council warning that HIV and AIDS-related deaths are rising in the country. Men and boys are the hardest hit. The council chief executive Ruth Marshall revealed ahead of this celebration. She said that for the first time in more than a decade, the country has witnessed high number of AIDS-related diseases. So they are calling Kenyans to come out in large numbers during the commemoration of World AIDS Day on 1st December on Thursday to just learn more about how to prevent yourself from getting this particular disease. Also, still on matters health, UN Health Agency kicks off meningitis vaccination drive in Africa. This is after the number of vaccination reduced due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but now it's back on the road, and the WHO has now launched a new roadmap towards stopping bacterial meningitis outbreak by 2030, urging countries to implement it quickly before the start of the meningitis season in January 2023. And finally, we have a very interesting story here saying that not all that glitters is gold. What they write here is if something looks too good to be true, It probably is, saying that this was omitted from the Kenya's Foreign Affairs Ministry when it warned job seekers who were attracted by the promise of greener pastures in Southeast Asia. And it follows a number of rescues of more than 60 Kenyans from Myanmar and Laos over the last few months. Basically what was happening is that they were applying for jobs in customer service, and then on application they were taken to Thailand. And upon arriving in Thailand, they were taken again to a city, I believe, which is called Laos. And from there, they were duped. They ended up in a 15-story building, which became their full-time residence, although they did not know which town or city they were in. And then they learned that instead of customer service roles, they were there to engage in cybercrime activities, namely to target Americans by creating enticing profiles on Tinder, Instagram and Facebook, so basically to steal from them. And for these Kenyans to get out of this particular bondage or to buy their freedom, they had to pay 1.2 million Kenyan shillings in order to free themselves after falling victims of Southeast Asia fraudsters. So make sure when you are doing your job applications that is the right application you are making. Confirm, not all that glitters is gold. That is some of the news making stories in the People's Daily. To you, Marie.
Yes, I have the Standard newspaper with me, and the headline here, exams like no other, talking about the KPSEA exam, KCPE and the KCSE examinations. It's a special exam, not just for the candidates, but for the country as well, as 3 national examinations take off today. The KPSEA being the first one for the CBC learners who are in grade 6 and transitioning to junior high school. Still questions being asked whether they are going to be domiciled in the primary section or the secondary section. So that will come out definitely eventually when the task force does give its report. So that is a story that is being covered in the Standard newspaper on the front page. 3.4 million candidates are going to be sitting these national examinations this year. And remember that this examination actually has been was actually affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is the lot, especially the KCP and the KCSE students whose calendar was squeezed. And so this lot definitely did have it rough, but yeah, thank God that it's coming to an end. The 844 system, the last class will be next year, according to the report here in the Standard newspaper. So 844 going out by the CBC coming in. So that is a story that you can actually read in the Standard newspaper. The other story being covered here is about the politics, definitely. Victor did mention, and Raila asked foot soldiers to protest new Ruto rules. That also includes, meetings across the country. According to Raila, he'll be calling for meetings across the country for people to actually protest against what he terms as probably punitive rules. And definitely the IEBC 4, the Cherera 4, also being mentioned there, that Kenyans should actually come out and speak and protect them from being ousted, mainly because of deferring or with the IBC chairman during the 9th August polls. That's a story in the Standard newspaper also being covered. The other story, Mudavadi clashes with CS over maize imports. This is a very interesting story, Victor, Doreen, and Ayeta. I don't know what you think, because maize seems to be an area that causes a lot of friction. Because here, the CS, the cabinet secretary, the prime cabinet secretary, that is Musalia Mudavadi, is even asking questions as to why it's the trade CS who is actually calling for the importation instead of the agriculture CS, Mithika Linturi. So I find it quite interesting, like we've not actually heard from the agriculture CS. What do you think?
The Agriculture Ministry actually spoke last week over this matter, and they say that they are going to do an assessment to ascertain the deficit that there is in the country before, these importations come to the fore. Because, I mean, just as you're talking about, there, Marie, maize is really quite a pertinent issue. It is our staple food as a country, and anytime you touch on the issue of maize, heads go spiraling because as we speak, farmers are saying that they have maize in their granaries. So then when you are talking about importation, where does this leave them? The head of public services now said that then if you're actually having maize and you're holding them, then release them, because if you don't, the 10 million bags are just going to be circulating in the market. So it's a matter of who really is fooling who, because if maize is there, why are we importing to the extent that we can supply? And if indeed we need to import, then we need to be importing the deficit that exists. So then you don't do this at the peril and the detriment of the farmers.
Yeah, exactly. And even the farmers are faulting the directory to sell maize in 72 hours.
Yeah,
they're saying it's not even enough time for them to be able to sell their maize.
Yeah, because this moist maize, where are you selling it? They haven't even gone through the process before you actually release it to the market. So it's really, I mean, I don't even know how this is going to be panned out.
Ugali lazima ikuwe kwa meza.
We have to eat it.
I said this one time, not so sure whether it's politically correct, but I said, sitakubali siasa kwa tumbo yangu. So I decided to handle my maize differently, that is. So another story, interesting, the sun makes me sick. It's a very interesting story. I mean, according to the health experts, and we know that the sun is a source of vitamin D, but not everybody is comfortable being out in the sun. It's a story being covered here of an 11-year-old girl. You can imagine the age of this young girl who most of the age mates actually are playing out there and all that, but she cannot actually expose herself out in the sun because the sun makes her sick, and in particular she has skin cancer. So it's an interesting story, or an interesting read in the Standard newspaper Health and Science section. Also HIV wonder drug, even as Stephanie was talking about the World AIDS Day that is coming up on the 1st of December. This is an interesting story. Bill Gates was in the country just a few days ago, or maybe just a week ago, and announced that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will be releasing a drug that will ensure protection for people who could be at risk of contracting HIV for at least 6 months, 60 days for at least 6 months. So that's a very interesting read there, and definitely it will be a very innovative drug for HIV people. So this drug, I want to believe, is not for people who are HIV positive, but who are negative but are at risk of contracting HIV. So that's the story in the Standard newspaper that you can actually catch and read. So thank you so much for being with us this morning. That's where I want to put a cap.
Just before you close, Marie,
yes,
just before you close, let's quickly run through the Daily Nation before you get to close there. A quick run through on what the Daily Nation is holding for you this morning. Of course, matters of exams taking center stage. This is because KPSE, KCPE, KCSE will be sitting their exams, of course, this particular month, and this two sets, that is KPSE and KCPE, have already begun. This is actually one of those times where we're experiencing a high number of these candidates, a total of 3.4 million in both these three sets, and also presents one of those tests for the Cabinet Secretary for Education, that is Ezekiel Machogu, given the fact that he is overseeing the first set of the CBC, that is grade 6, who are sitting for this particular exam in transitioning to grade 7. And if things go well, then of course this is a matter that also will be looked into. As my colleagues have rightfully put it, we are still also waiting for that particular report. The task force has been traversing the country. What we know is that they are yet to submit this particular report to the president, because then that is what is going to be informing whether grade 7 is going to be continuing or we put a halt on that particular stage. So this also is a matter that is being looked into when it comes to the education sector. Away from that, also matters of maize importation have taken center stage on this particular daily. This is because of the push and pull, and again, different stakeholders saying that it's not a time to politicize this matter, so to speak, but also look into the welfare of Kenyans. What the head of public service, Mr. Koskei, is now saying is that he has ruled out calls to suspend importation of the produce, noting that the country country is staring at a serious shortage of the staple, and that's just what you're talking about earlier. So then if this maize is here, why then is it not being released in the market? So why then are farmers hoarding, going by what is being said on that particular side? And also, why then will the government, through the Ministry of Trade, ensure that they import this maize at the expense of the farmer? So really, who is fooling who at the expense of Kenyans? Away from that, Kalonzo declares presidential bid. That is a 2027 presidential bid. This as he was speaking in his Ukambani backyard, and he's already declared that, also saying that he is set to inherit Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party leader Raila Odinga's political base. And he has also cited the fact that, Dr. President Ruto is the only obstacle, and he knows it. But isn't it really quite early to just be declaring your bid? How many months since the election? Has even 3 months really quite ended fully for our leaders to start declaring for the 2027 bid? But saying politics run the world, runs the country.
Your best.
But at the end of the day, we are still reeling with cost of living, maize issues happen pale, IEBC, for one to...
Steph, what did you say?
Mapema your best. That's what is being said out here. So...
Anyway, it's really quite early nonetheless. So Raila calls for rallies against ouster of IEBC, for it's also a very key issue given the fact that today the hearings continues, began on Thursday last week, Friday as well, took a break over the weekend, and that continues today and tomorrow. And today is the turn for the IEBC 4 commissioners, that is the vice chair together with the 3 other commissioners, and this in respect to the petition that was filed, issues of gross misconduct, alteration of the the previous election results as well. So today they set the case was already presented, so then today they set their defense, and we also see how this will pan out. Raila Odinga has already declared that they will be going around the country, and they'll actually begin with Kamukunji on Wednesday, and from Kamukunji they'll be heading to areas of Mombasa, Nakuru, Kisumu, as well as Kakamega. And this is just in a bid to ask Kenyans whether it's right or not to remove these 4 commissioners. But remember, or take note, I shall say, if JLAC finds merit in respect to these petitions that were filed, then it simply means that the president is going to constitute a tribunal that will be spearheading their removal. And if that happens, then we will be saying that this is the shortest, these are the commissioners who have served the shortest in the IEBC. And also this comes at a time where the 3 commissioners, Wafula Chebukati, Boya Molu, and Abdi Gulia's term, and next year, January. Remember also the same month we have by-elections of these areas where leaders moved to the executive. So then what will this mean in respect to IEBC? And also going by that Kriegler report that talked about constituting IEBC, is it months, 2 years before elections, and at this point you really are thinking of removing the commissioners in in respect to these various petitions. So we wait to see how all this will pan out. You can remember also that last week the members of National Assembly allied to Odinga walked out of County Hall where this hearing are continuing. So what does this mean in respect to just having one faction dealing with this particular matter? So we wait to see how all this will pan out after Tuesday and the fate of these 4 commissioners. I believe it's a good place to take a break, Director. Is it? Yeah, it is. So we take a very quick breather. Plenty more coming your way after this break. Stay with us.
I was part of the team yenye ilitumwa kutake out Burhan. kwa 5 years, nika study the man. Na tukaenda tukijua kwamba mambo yalikuwa nzuri. All I ask is you let me write my homes and give me an opportunity to bring Burhan down for good.
Na una hakika hiki kikosi chako kitaweza kufanya hivyo?
Yes, sir.
Hii kikosi chako kuna kina nani?
Sergeant Farah, a.k.a. Stingray, Intelligence. Corporal Ibrahim, a.k.a. Mongoose, Intelligence. Corporal Katana, a.k.a. Panther, Medic. Come on, me! BC Adhiambo, a.k.a. Maliet, Machine Gun. BC Kibet, a.k.a. University, Sniper. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Nasikia wasewa saini tunakuanga wadedi.
Tatu ni polisi kama kisha.
Chini, chini.
Deliver bidhaa kama kawa kuna maswali.
Return to base. I repeat, return to base.
Hayawi huwa kinyang'anyiro cha kombe la dunia nchini Qatar cha wananga Novemba 20 hadi Disemba 18, huku timu 32 zikiwania taji. KBC Channel 1 inakupa fursa ya kutazama mbashara kipindi hicho kutoka Qatar nyumbani kwako. Runinga ya KBC Channel 1 inakukaribisha kwenye kipindi cha Dunda Dunda Qatar.
Nakwambia kwamba baba, alama ya reli ni Dunda Dunda Qatar, na tunakuja nyumbani pale mtaani pale ambapo upo wewe mwenyewe,
huku ukijishindia zawadi chungu nzima.
Hapa kumejaa vitu kocho kocho.
Jongea shabiki kwenye Dunda Dunda Qatar,
ukitazama unashinda.
KBC Channel 1, wenzio wa dhati michezoni.
Long before joining active politics, Maina Wanjigi, born in 1931, came to the public limelight when soon after independence, founding President Jomo Kenyatta appointed him Director of Settlement to oversee the implementation of the 1 million acre settlement scheme meant to create homes for more than 1 million Kenyans whose land had been grabbed by the colonialists. Wanjigi joined active politics when contest in the November 1969 Kamukunji constituency by-election occasioned by the assassination of Tom Mboya, the eloquent right-wing Minister for Planning. The former MP takes credit for initiating and developing the expansive open-air Gikomba market in his constituency. Another project that he took pride in was helping to establish the Juekali informal business sector in Shauri Moyo. In a speech he delivered in Parliament in June 1973, Wanjigi advocated for free primary school education for all, something the country would realize 30 years later. In 1970, founding President Jomo Kenyatta appointed Wanjigi Assistant Minister in the Ministry of Agriculture headed by Bruce Mackenzie. In 1976, Wanjigi was among politicians opposed to the change the constitution debate meant to bar the then Vice President Daniel Moi from being the automatic President Kenyatta's successor. In the 1979 general election, the first under President Moi, Wanjigi lost his seat to Nicholas Gore, who was the former chairman of the Luo Union in Nairobi. In December 1979, President Moi appointed Wanjigi chairman of Kenya Airways. When President Moi restructured his cabinet following a snap election in 1983 in an effort to solidify his authority, in view of the 1982 attempted coup, he appointed Wanjigi to the cabinet as Minister for Tourism and Wildlife. Wanjigi had recaptured his Kamukunji parliamentary seat in the snap elections. It was during his time in the ministry that the dream to have Kenya receive 1 million tourists by 1988 was unveiled. This would, however, however, not happen until 2010, 22 years after Wanjigi's projected date. Wanjigi was moved to the Ministry of Public Works and Housing. In another cabinet reshuffle, Moi moved Wanjigi to the Ministry of Cooperative Development. Working closely with Permanent Secretary Andrew Ligale and Commissioner for Cooperatives Erastus Moreithi, he led the ministry in establishing savings and credit cooperative societies across the sector and countrywide. It was during his tenure that Cooperative Bank was launched. Wanjigi was then transferred to the Ministry of Agriculture, where he had cut his teeth as a young professional in the 1960s. In 1990, he was expelled from the ruling party KANU during the clamor for multi-party politics in 1990. Then presumed an enemy of the President Moi regime, Wanjigi was arrested, interrogated and held at the Langata police station for 3 days before being taken to court. No charges were preferred against him. When Section 2A of the Constitution was repealed, Wanjigi entered an unfamiliar arena of opposition politics and joined Kenneth Matiba's Foda Sili faction of the original Forum for the Restoration of Democracy Ford Party. He and others in the opposition tried to bring together Matiba and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga's Ford factions in order to defeat KANU in the 1992 general election. When these failed, he and others took over the Kenya National Congress KNC party in the hope that it would hold the middle ground that ostensibly sensible politicians from both factions would turn to and eventually turn the tables on KANU. But the politicians from both sides of the Ford divide stood their ground and KNC was thrown out of the political contest. Wanjigi vied for the Kamukunji seat on a KNC party ticket and lost coming fourth. The seat was won by Foda Sili's George Nthenge. In 1997, Wanjigi moved to his home base of Mathioya constituency in Nyeri district to vie on a Foda Sili ticket. The incumbent was KANU Secretary General Joseph Kamotho. Both were badly defeated by the hitherto unknown Ford People candidate Francis Githiari. Wanjigi bowed out of politics and focused on his business empire under the umbrella of Kwacha Group of Companies. He was also the chairman of the SOS Children's Home Program in Kenya for 25 years. Reporting for the Cabinet, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
Happy Diwali. Happy Diwali.
Nairobi lit up with a dazzling display of light and color as thousands of people celebrated the Hindu festival of Diwali.
जहाँ शुद्ध प्यार होगा, देवों का राज होगा.
Houses, shops and public spaces were decorated with small oil lamps called diyas.
Decorated the temple with a lot of diyas or little candles, and it's very bright. So it's celebrating a festival of light, festival of brightness, and we want to imbibe that brightness into our lives. We want to shine from within. That is why we celebrate Diwali.
Traditionally, all Hindus celebrate it around the world by coming to the temple. The light signifies, let there be light in our life, and so there's lamps all over the temple. The idea is everyone has a spark of life, a spark of inspiration in their life, and let that illumination come in their lives.
Diwali, also known as the Festival of Lights, as people illuminate oil lamps or candles to symbolize the triumph of light over darkness and good over evil.
Today is the last day of the Hindu calendar year, so we offer our prayers to the God. It's no moon day, dark day, so we celebrate as a festival of light, spreading the light over the darkness, good over the evil.
Festival of Light signifies not just victory of good over evil, but also illumination. Illumination through knowledge. Illumination through the spark of light in our life. Let it be bright. Let it be full of festival. Let it be full of color. Let it be full of pomp and enthusiasm.
We celebrate togetherness, we celebrate unity, and we forget the past and move towards a brighter future.
It is an ancient Hindu festival celebrated annually and is considered to be the most significant festival in Hinduism, while also being celebrated by Buddhists, Jains and Sikhs. The Festival of Lights, which spans 5 days, varies every year depending on the Indian calendar. According to the ancient calendar, Diwali occurs on Amavasya, that is the new moon, on the 15th day of the 8th month of Kartik in India's calendar. In the English calendar, Diwali typically falls between mid-October and mid-November each year.
This time in India, monsoon is over, fresh crop is harvested. So we prepare different dishes from the grains, whatever we have harvested. And the first food dishes, we offer it to the God. We prepare many dishes, as many we can. And as our prayer, we offer that food to the God. And that sanctified food we will consume as prasadam. We give to as many as devotees.
Traditionally, all Hindus all over the world celebrate Diwali. They come here to end the year as well, because the Hindu calendar, Diwali is the end of the year. We are celebrating New Year, the end of the year with prayers. We are celebrating the festival with a bang, which is fireworks, which is why it's called Festival of Light.
The festival's origin is linked to various religions, including Hinduism, Jainism, and Sikhism. Hence, every community has its own Diwali story and unique way of commemorating the occasion, but they nearly all celebrate the triumph of good over evil. For Hindus, the celebration marks the return of Lord Rama from a 14-year exile to his kingdom, Ayodhya, after rescuing his wife Sita and defeating Lord Ravana, the demon king of Lanka. To commemorate Rama's return to Ayodhya, they lit up their homes with clay lamps. This is believed to be the origin of Diwali tradition. Every year on Diwali, people celebrate Lord Rama's return home with festive lights, fireworks and family gatherings. For Sikhs, Diwali is important because it marks Guru Har Gobind's release after 12 years of imprisonment by the 16th century emperor Jahangir. While the Jains commemorate Diwali to honor their Lord Mahavira's moksha, a spiritual awakening that symbolizes humanity's liberation from darkness, and Buddhist communities celebrate the festival to honor Emperor Ashoka's conversion to Buddhism in antiquity. For many people, this 5-day festival honors Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth.
Devotees to come to the temple. They come to this where the deities are, and Aarti, which is called the waving of the lights, lamps in front of the deities or in front of God, happens. From there, these special prayers, you can see this in front of you, which is called the Mahapuja prayer. The Mahapuja prayer is called Chopra Pujan, which is also celebrated by all Hindus around the world. So Chopra Pujan is about the financial records being sanctified for a new beginning next year. Chopra means books. The financial books are blessed, or we are praying for a better tomorrow. It's a famine in Kenya right now, so there's special prayers even today for rains. We are hoping for agricultural crops to be very abundant and plentiful, because we are an agricultural economy. And so even on Wednesday, which is a new year, it starts with the Ankut festival.
This year, an image of Pramukh Swami Maharaj, who founded the BAPS Swaminarayan branch of Hinduism, has also been set up at the temple to mark centennial celebrations.
This year, adding one more point to all of us, our Guru's 100th birthday celebration was going on.
The message of His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj was, in the joy of others lies our own. And we want to spread that message by doing the work which he has done.
He lived a life of giving his all to society, asking nothing, wanting nothing, but giving his all for society.
Other ways that Hindus celebrate the festival include spring cleaning the home, wearing new clothes, exchanging gifts, often sweets and dried fruits, and preparing festive meals, decorating buildings with fancy lights and huge firework displays. For some, Diwali marks the beginning of a new year. It is also the social high point. Individuals are buoyed by festive cheer. They throw parties, meet friends and family, and exchange gifts.
The time of the year, I get to dress up and, make changes, clean everything up and, do patterns outside your house and light up diyas or like small lamps, which signify, light over darkness and good over evil, knowledge over ignorance. So there's a lot of things that go into making Diwali a very special festival.
It makes so much fun for the everyone's. Like the kids are celebrating also. Enjoy from the kids and elders. We meet each other and we celebrate our happiness to each other.
It's about giving. It's about in the joy of others lies our own. In the good of others lies our own.
To culminate Diwali, or the Festival of Lights, fireworks are set off. Reporting for My Culture, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
Robert Gishangi Kabage's ambition in life was to be a teacher, so he went ahead to get an untrained teacher job in Nyeri at St. Paul's Seminary right after his A-levels.
When I went to St. Paul's Seminary, I had a colleague of mine who had come from Kakamega High School. And this colleague of mine had a challenge in one of his feet had a challenge. So he always used to look at me and say, if I was like you, I would join the military. Next recruitment of the military that was advertised, I went and I was just recruited.
He joined the military on the 14th of August 1981, reporting to the Armed Forces Training School, Lanet.
Later, after 3-4 years, I joined the Logistics Corps. So I came to Kahawa as a logistics officer. And I went through the logistics line up to the highest appointment within the logistics. I was the co-commander of the Kenya Army Logistics Corps.
Shortly after, Kabage went for his very first mission to Sierra Leone, heading the demobilization, disarmament and reintegration program.
At that time, the situation was terrible. Law and order had broken down. The rebels had taken over the country. But by the time we got there, they had already signed a peace agreement, a comprehensive peace agreement. And now they had agreed that they want peace. That's why we were deployed there as a peacekeeping contingent. So my role was to facilitate the peace process by ensuring or making sure that I prepare those combatants, all those people who are involved in fighting, to lay down their arms and be reintegrated into the society.
Kabage had to move to the hotspots in the countryside and identify centers with people who wanted to be disarmed.
We had to give them a facility whereby they could come, bring their weapons, hand over their weapons, they are registered, and then they are prepared for subsequent stages, because once this person lays down their weapon, they need to be assisted to resettle back into the community.
In Sierra Leone, Kabage witnessed the great atrocities of political conflict, roadblocks, women and children with hands chopped off.
Sometimes they would give you short sleeve. Short sleeve is they chop you from here. Long sleeve, they would chop you from here. So what actually one time touched me is when I saw a 2-year girl with both hands chopped. It was very sad.
But his work wasn't without challenges, for the missions were also very dangerous and risky.
I remember in May 2000, I was in a place called Makeni, and I had a British officer with me. We had gone to try and set up a DDL camp. We almost got kidnapped. We were actually assisted by a Kenyan military contingent that was in that area.
Over the years, he went to other nations in pursuit of peace.
After Sierra Leone, I also had the opportunity of being appointed defense attaché to our Kenya mission to the United Nations to address issues of peacekeeping, deployment of our peacekeepers, police, military, and prisons.
Brigadier retired Dr. Robert Gishangi Kabage was in the very first peacekeeping Kenyan contingent to land in Sierra Leone in December of 1999. 35 years later, he retires from the Kenya Army, joins with like-minded individuals in the pursuit for peace in Africa and globally. Reporting for KBC from Runda in Kiambu County, Amnesty Emmanuel.
Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. Just to remind you that today is a very special day for the country. Of course, students are taking their first examination in the next 1 hour, so to speak, in the next, at 8:30, they'll be starting with their first paper. We have almost around 3 million students starting the examination this morning. We have got KCPE and KPSEA, exactly, grade 6, and of course the class 8 students being part of the CBC, which is going to be quite instrumental even as we try to remodel the education calendar and the system as we are. Okay, currently we have got 3,416,048 being the total number of students sitting the examination. Now, this is one of the biggest numbers in the recent past, and of course, it is starting today, running through a better part of this week. Is going to be a busy week, of course. This comes even at the backdrop of the Presidential Working Committee trying to get the hits and misses on the CBC program. And of course, we will be wishing all the candidates the very best in their national examination. It's going to be a test for the Cabinet Secretary, that is CS Machogu, on how he's going to handle this examination, coming up at the backdrop of cases of exam cheating and irregularities. How he's going to handle it, some would say that it's going to be his first test. And of course, we cannot miss to talk about that even as we get into the real politics of the day. And in studio, I have got Engineer Crispus Wathimba joining me in studio. Engineer, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for hosting me.
Yes.
I'm happy to be here.
Karibu
sana.
Just
dropped my son who is doing the CBC exam.
Oh, yes.
And I just want to wish all the candidates all the best.
Yes.
And especially where my son is at Seedling Junior School. I wish them all the best.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage parents that with the new CBC curriculum, it's now about competence. It's
exactly.
not about just academia and all that. So whatever your child will be able to achieve in terms of this examination, build on that. Don't judge them as harshly because maybe they did not meet your expectation, but carry on with whatever they have, and it will shape them. We have seen when the CSs were being vetted.
Yes.
Some of them were professors, some of them had D. But they are all cabinet secretaries today, serving this government. So it does not matter what outcome they
all is not lost.
All is not lost.
Yeah.
Your child has an opportunity.
Yeah.
Out there.
And if anything, you've just reminded me, in the good book, everyone has a talent.
Exactly.
And that is inborn.
Exactly.
So an education is the part of literacy that human beings that we have to go through. But God gave each and every person a talent.
There is the inherent talent that you have that cannot be taken away from you. Knowledge is acquired from one environment to the other. So if I don't have the kind of knowledge you have, it doesn't make me lesser being than you. But in the kind of talent I have makes me unique to you and any other person.
Let's look at this number, 3 million. This is a big number, and of course, students sitting the first examination, the first on its kind, the first cohort of the CBC, the grade 6, now the competency based. It's not going to be out of the 100%, but this is going to be out of 40%. Now the remaining 60 is going to be based on the competency in class and the way you answer questions and the talent. Perhaps, how do you think it's going to turn out after the marking and the results are now completely out?
Already, the 60% has already been assessed. It's already in the portal. So a child is able to know, I've achieved this much. So what you're looking for is a 40%. Out of what you'll achieve today, whether you get 90 out of 100, it will constitute the 40% that you're working on. So the opportunity that comes with this kind of assessment is that even if there are any challenges that will happen today, tomorrow, and the next day, your child's fate is not defined by one event. Unlike in other cases where the KCP and KCSE is all about one moment, one period, 1 week or 1 month. In this case, already most of the children have already been assessed for the last 2-3 years. And therefore, they already have a milestone. 60% of what they need to achieve has already been assessed. They have already gone through that path. All they are looking for is 40%. So therefore, no matter how the exam may come out for any child, they are already winners one way or another. So it's not a very punitive.
You make it sound so easy, but the whole CBC process looked so hard even for the parents to comprehend.
What I would say is the CBC is not very hard. It's a bit taxing. It's a bit more involving. It's one of those curriculum that requires intentional parenting. That you as a parent, you must be intentional in terms of you support your child academic achievements. In terms of the competence a child have, how do you realize them? How do you, what are the signals that you may want to look out for to know what competence your child has? For example, if your child is in love with music or is good in swimming, my son is very good at chess, but it took me an intention and effort
to realize that.
And I also had to go further and invest in terms of time and resources to nurture that interest that child has. So unless you're committed to support CBC as a parent, you will think it is very taxing. But you must be intentional. That's the most important thing.
I like the way you put it. And perhaps this is going to be calling on the kind of parenting that's going to be we are going to have moving forward, because education is the equalizer. Education is the equalizer. But Ijide, before we take a break, let me just introduce Hamisi Mboka, who is joining me via Zoom all the way from Mombasa. Hamisi, good morning. Good to have you once again. All right. Or it seems you're not getting Hamisi. Hamisi, we'll get back to you shortly. Engineer, there is this bit of the pioneer class. There was that question of, should they remain in primary school or they just transit to the next junior secondary school? And part of the recommendation that we've had from the Presidential Working Committee is that they're still young. They need to remain in primary school. Let them get nurtured. Let them get through the process first before they get into junior secondary school. I don't know, what's your take when you look at your son?
What I would say, looking at my sons and his classmates, they are quite young. So therefore, in my opinion, let the junior high school be domiciled within the primary school. So in terms of the psychological approach we can do in terms of giving them a transition, change the uniform. so that this child can feel they are a bit different from the rest of the crowd. Because already we have given them this idea that you are transiting from grade 6, which is a primary school, to a junior high school. And therefore, to give them that credence that you are now different from the rest,
just change
the uniform. So that they look different from the other. But in terms of the physical space, let them occupy the same space. You can change your child maybe to another primary school, that's okay, but the child is still within that group of young children.
Exactly.
So in terms of the bullying element or fear or anxiety they may have, is minimized.
Exactly.
But if you take them to high school, where the crowd is a bit mature, is a bit rough, just to say
culture
politely,
shock is real.
Really.
All right. Engineer, let's take a break. When you come back, we're still going to talk more about this examination and, if possible, also connect with our reporters on the ground. In the next 30 minutes, the exam will kick off, and of course, we'll also be connected with Amisi Boga all the way from Mombasa via Zoom. Let's take a break. When you come back, GMK continues. Thank you.
I want to show them my attitude. Yeah bana, ni chuo kikuu cha burudani, mashavu.
Nyumbani kaumbea.
Burudani.
Twende tukacheze bango. Mama it takes two to tango.
Na interview kali kutoka Pwani.
Anakucheza nawe. Baby nimechizi nawe. Na ukitaka tuiwashe leo.
Bwana, kila siku ya Friday ama Ijumaa ukipenda saa 3 hadi saa 6 kamili.
Fanya kama unacheza isoko.
Kumbuka hashtag
Masha.
Nyumbani kwa burudani. Usikose tegea show kali tokea pande za Pwani.
Values. All right. Welcome back. With me in studio is Engineer Christmas Wathimba. Amisi Boga joining me shortly via Zoom. If you have him, we're still talking about matters examination, and of course, 3 million, over 3.4 million kids will be starting the examination in the next 20 or so minutes. And of course, we wish them all the best. Engineer, before we continue, before we bring in Amisi Boga, we talk about the issue of parental. In terms of going back in the past and now the current level of parenting that we have right now, it's more connecting both parents and the kids, because now you'll be forced to be in the life of that kid to find out whether he or she has done the homework given by the teachers.
Exactly.
So this will continue, perhaps.
Actually, this curriculum, the reason why some parents are finding it challenging is because they had become digital parents, meaning I'm in office, I can call, do a video call to my child, check if the homework has been done, tell the house help, can you help the child to do homework, send the same to somebody to check, and you're not there.
Yeah.
But this kind of CBC program is forcing you to participate actively in terms of raising that child. And therefore, things like the values we miss as a country of honesty, of ethics, we will now be able to inculcate them in our children.
Yes.
If the president is talking about us being responsible citizens, paying our taxes, your child will ask you, what is this issue about paying taxes? Because the CBC program is teaching that.
Exactly.
Then you as a parent, you'll be able to demonstrate.
Yes.
On your bill, we bought sugar today and it had taxes.
Yeah.
Me as an employee of a government, this is my payroll. I pay taxes. So therefore, this child will grow up knowing there are certain values as a Kenyan citizen you must hold. Elements of patriotism will be easily inculcated. One of the challenges we have as a country is that we have lost values. We don't have proper national values.
Yeah.
10%, 30% of our news in the morning is about corruption and violence. And domestic issues.
Yeah.
So we need to remove that so that a parent is there to help a child understand the issues. Yes, you see corruption in the news, but the parent is intentional, is active, is able to tell the child, this is wrong, this is what you need to aspire for as a person.
Yeah. All right. Let me just give you a figure here. Some of the figures that we have currently. We have got 3,416,048 total number of students sitting the examination. There's a breakdown. We have got total primary school candidates is 2,531,785. The number of class standard 8 candidates stand at 1,231,785. The number of grade 6 candidates is 1,287,597. And of course, NEC has availed 242,406 invigilators to oversee this examination. And the grade 6 exam, as you correctly put it, will constitute of 40% of total score.
Exactly.
All right. And then the remaining, the grade 4, 5, and 6 school-based assessment make up to remaining 60%. And of course, the assessment has been happening over the years. So it's just that the final rubber stamp of the assessment that we are going to be doing in the final examination.
The test is now, did your school do the right job in terms of putting that assessment in the portal? There's already a portal where all these assessments are supposed to be placed by the respective schools.
Yes.
So if your school failed to do that, then you failed your pupils. But the responsibility of the child to do that work has already been passed. The work was given by the ministry, do this, assess this child this way, and then once you've done that assessment, put it in the portal so that it can all be assessed overall.
This sounds like a real test for the CBC, so that at the end of the day, the government will clearly see that, okay, fine, this is what we did over the years.
Yes.
The CBC was... it started that this particular year, the assessment took place, and then the final exam.
Is this one.
But then now the final exam now, perhaps the government should wait and see. So this is the results. This is now how CBC has happened and the assessment of the students. So as even the government trying to tighten and fix the loose ends on the CBC curriculum, perhaps this should be part of the marking scheme.
Definitely there'll be, because remember, not all children are playing on the same field.
No.
There are kids where some of the facilities are not there. And therefore you cannot measure them as equal as others. And therefore the government has to be very intentional in terms of how they assess each child. Each child assessment will be very unique in the way that if you can see the kind of projects this person was able to do during grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6 will also reflect in the quality of the exam outcome this time around. And therefore, that child has to be assessed in a very unique manner. Children in northeastern Kenya today, they are going through hunger. You cannot subject them to the same kind of assessment as a child here in Nairobi, where he's being dropped to school, he has all the facilities, and therefore it's important that the government is very sensitive to each child's case.
Yes. Most of us went through the old system, actually the current one, now the 844 system.
Yes.
Look at the comparison. Take the comparison between the CBC and the 844. What would you make as a comparison?
Well, CBC, people need to understand, CBC is not 844.
No.
What we have, 844 can be measured with the 2633.
Yes.
So CBC is a philosophy where you look at the competence of the child. It's not heavily knowledge-based. Whereas 844 at the beginning was both competence and knowledge-based. But as we progressed, the focus became more on the knowledge. who has got A, who has got B, who has got C, who has got D. We forgot about the competence part. So what we are doing but is that we are revisiting where we started, where the competence was the main thing, and therefore the knowledge was just an addition to that. We are trying to balance. Today, the biggest companies in the world are tech companies. Most of them were founded by people who don't even finish their graduate education. And therefore, because they had competence, but the system was a bit easy for them to progress without even having acquired full knowledge. Yes. But they had the competence, they were given an opportunity. In Kenya, it's all about academic. You must have a degree, having a master's is an advantage. But then these people, some of them don't even need the master. They don't even need the degree. They are very good at what they do without even that kind of education. All they need is a competence. I am into engineering, and majority of my workers, I have trained them at the field because I've realized they have the ability to acquire the certain skills easily as compared to some people who have gone to school. And therefore, it's all about realizing each person's ability, skills, competence, and being able to nurture them. Yes. And that's what CBC is doing.
And that's what CBC is all about. You know, my director is saying that we have to talk about Olunga, Michael Olunga. He's an engineer like you.
Yes.
But he's playing football, and that's what pays his bills.
Exactly. I have a young man in Nakuru. He was admitted to go and do civil engineering.
Yes.
But the young man at the first year, he got tired. He's very good in art. He can take a picture of you in a pencil and draw you. And he told me, you know, I gave up. There was no passion in engineering. My passion was in art. And that is able to pay him today.
Yes.
Because he was able to realize his talent, and he was given the environment by parents and people to support that talent, and he was able to nurture it. So therefore, we need to be able to have a system where we can be able to identify each child's competence and talent and be able to nurture it.
Absolutely.
And that's why people are saying it's a bit expensive. My son is in Chuches.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap game.
No, it's not.
Every month we have to do tours in Eldoret, in Mombasa, in wherever. It costs us money and it costs us time. But that is the cost of nurturing that competence.
At the end of the day, you're looking at the end result because you're impacting the competence in that child.
Exactly.
He'll tell you, Daddy, you know, for me, you told me to do medicine. I'm not interested in medicine. I want chess. And he'll be looking at international players who are making, you know, international arena in the chess. And he'll be like them. Perhaps books will just be something of the past. I don't know.
Books are an added advantage.
I like this conversation because all of us went through class.
Yeah.
But there is that inborn thing that all of us must inculcate. Mine is about drama, arts, and theater.
Yeah.
I usually say that is the cigarette that I smoke.
Yes.
Everywhere I am, you'll find me writing a poem or writing a script or whatever it is. And during examination, the corona pandemic, that kids did not go for drama festivals, I suffered. I have to say that I suffered.
Because you could not...
I could not write my scripts and directing kids and all that.
Yeah.
Let's look at the number of the students who are going to sit the examination, and perhaps this is going to be one of the biggest tests for the new CS. Of course, he's taking over from CS Magoha, who was hands-on, the issue of irregularities, exam cheating. What do you think the CS Machogu now is waiting at his desk in his office and seeing, okay, students are sitting the examination, irregularities are here, we have got examination cartels here, which CS Magoha really tried to crash, and perhaps he's still scratching his head somewhere.
I think I sympathize with CS Machoga, given that, number one, he doesn't have a substantive PS to help him to navigate this issue, because the current PS knows he's already leaving. And therefore, the team that is supposed to...
So he was taking responsibility the other way.
The team that is supposed to help Machogi is not yet in office. And therefore, he's there alone with a team of civil servants whose loyalty he may not be very sure all about, because he needed to have his pieces and reorganize the ministry, put his house in order, and therefore guide in terms of coming out with an assessment, a proper assessment of these 3.4 million children. And therefore, for him, he will really rely on the support of the president and in marshalling the entire team of the ministry to give the best outcome. You remember this CBC was born by Matiang'i.
Yes.
And then he handed it over to Magoha, whom they had worked together when he was the chair of the National Examination Council. And therefore they really carried on the business of CBC passionately. Machoge is just coming in as a minister, maybe a month or two into the examination of the 3.4 million children. He's probably not yet settled down very well to understand the issues at the ministry. And therefore, I see a test, not just for Machoge, but for the hustler government, in terms of how they will be able to carry the dreams and aspirations of these hustlers. These are the hustlers who will vote for them in 2032 and 2037.
Yes.
And therefore, if they kill their dreams, it will be very painful. 2027, a lot of these young people are the ones who are going to elect William Ruto if he wants to be re-elected. And therefore, he must be able to carry and protect their dreams and aspirations through this assessment. If he cannot afford to kill any of those children's dreams, and therefore, this administration has a responsibility in terms of messaging, in terms of executing the work, and in terms of the outcome of this assignment. And even the task force that is already in place, whatever message it will communicate, it has to be a message that does not kill the dreams and aspirations of these young men.
When you talk of the skills and aspirations and the dreams, this is the number is big, so to speak, and we'd expect the facilities. The government saying that, you know, the former CS said that everything, the classes had been built in different parts of the country, but when you walk around, you'd see some kind of, you know, not well preparedness in terms of how this is going to be a transition from this generation to the next one in terms of students. What do you think could now cost this government to ensure that, yes, the exam is done, we have got 3.4 million doing the examination, and they need to transit nonetheless?
As I said earlier, instead of moving children physically from one school to the other, let the kids remain in that school. Remember, if you take this CBC class to a high school, you already have one classroom that is vacant, that they should have occupied. These kids are supposed to go to class 7, and the one in class 7 goes to class 8. If this class 6 don't go to class 7, that space physically is vacant.
Yes.
Because if they go to high school, that's where you create a deficit. So let these kids remain in the primary schools, so that already we have enough space within the primary schools to be occupied by those CBC class 6, grade 6, going to junior high school, which is grade 7. But if you move them to a secondary school physically, there'll be a deficit. So if they allow them to remain to be domiciled within the primary school, there'll be no problem of physical space. The challenge will be the psychological impact to that child that you are told you are transiting. So how do we manage that transition? Change uniform, change naming of the class, so that these children feel they are different from the other. They could be the mature crop within that school, so that they feel different. But if you want to take them physically to another school, there might be some challenges, because if you take, for example, where there were 4 streams, now you need to add another one. So that these kids can occupy, there'll be a challenge.
Engineer, let's take our Zoom, our link here, and head straight to Kisumu. We have got Mvurya speaking currently there. And let's just find out what is happening in the lakeside of Kisumu. Remember, KCPE starts today, and we wish all the students all the best. There you have it. That is Salim Mvurya. Let's listen in and what he's saying.
The education officials, the MAT agency team have done a very good job, and we have also met here the center managers and also the students. They are well prepared for the examination. As a government, we have decided today we dispatch cabinet secretaries to various parts of the regions. So my colleagues are in the other regions. I'm here today. And I just want to confirm that whatever has been prepared in terms of the exam, it has been done perfectly well. I want to urge all the stakeholders for this period of the exams
That is Cabinet Secretary Salim Mvurya, the Cabinet Secretary in charge of mining, blue economy and maritime affairs, speaking there in Kisumu. All right, we have him back. Perhaps you can just listen in on what he's saying. All right, let's listen in.
CBC implementation is an assessment for students. So I think this is also a good start, and I want to congratulate all education stakeholders, because we are from a very challenging period of COVID, but we were able to manage, and I'm sure next year the school calendar will resume normally. So I think I want to thank the County Commissioner, the teams here in Kisumu County, and the managers of the schools that we have visited, and we are satisfied that they have followed all the rules required to administer this exam. Kwa hivyo leo tumetembea hapa Kisumu, na kama serikali tumeamua kwamba mawaziri na wakuu wengine wa serikali waweze kutembelea sehemu tofauti ya nchi. Na mimi niko hapa Kisumu, na nataka tu kusema kwamba nimeshukuru sana wale wadau wote wa elimu wamefanya bidii, wameweza kuweka maadili mema katika mtihani huu. Nimeshuhudia pale asubuhi sana pale kwa container kuangalia mtihani, na tumeona maadili na sheria zimetimizwa, na tumeandamana, tumefika hapa Maseno Mixed Primary School, na tumeenda Maseno Girls, na nimetosheka kwamba yale matayarisho na kanuni na sheria zimeweza kufuatwa katika mtihani huu. Nataka kuwashukuru sana vitengo tofauti ya serikali ambao watashughulika katika mtihani huu. Tunawahimiza tu kila mmoja wao aweze kufanya jukumu la weledi ili mtihani huu usiwe na dosari. Na nimeona hapa wanafunzi na walimu wao na wadau wote, na kanuni zote za mtihani zimetimizwa. Nataka tu kuwatakia kila laheri wanafunzi wote wanaofanya mtihani. Wametayarishwa vilivyo, kwa hivyo hii ni siku yao ya kuweza kufaulu. Kuna wale wanafunzi wa darasa la 6 ambao wanafanya mtihani ule wa KBC, ambao basically ni mtihani wa kuangalia uwezo wao, na hiyo ni katika zile kanuni na hali ya kutimiza mfumo mpya wa CBC. Kwa hivyo tunatakia kila laheri, na katika mazingira ya shule tunataka tu kuwaeleza wale wahusika waweke mazingira mazuri ya mtihani, na hapa hakuruhusiwi simu. Pengine tu yule mwalimu mkuu na watu wa usalama ndio watakuwa na simu kwa mawasiliano maalum, si kwa mawasiliano mengine yoyote. Kwa hivyo tunatakia wanafunzi kila laheri na kila mmoja katika mambo haya ya mtihani. Asante sana.
There you have it. That is Salim Mvurya, Cabinet Secretary in charge of mining, blue economy and maritime affairs, speaking in Kisumu. And of course, different cabinet secretaries are all over the country to oversee the beginning of the national examination. Right about now, let's cross over to Mondiga in Mombasa to give us the real situation in Mombasa. Mondiga, hujambo, good morning. Everything is set and ready to go.
Well, good morning, Alo. Yes, indeed, everything is set here in County 001. Just an hour ago, Cabinet Secretary for Education, Ezekiel Machogu, opened the examination, opened examination containers at around 6:30 a.m. in the morning, and he has assured the public that watertight measures have been put in place to ensure that integrity of the exam is not in any way compromised. And of course, in terms of security, security has been heightened. There will be 2 security officers in each examination center just to ensure that students are secured as they carry on with their exams. There's a total of 2.5 million candidates sitting for exams, that is KCPE and KPSEA, that is Kenya Primary Education Assessment. And this Kenya Primary Education Assessment will be replacing the KCPE in the new CBC curriculum, that is competency-based curriculum. And the CS has also assured the candidates that everything has been put in place, and in places which are inaccessible, they have put enough measures. Among them, they have enough vehicles and helicopters to areas which can't be accessed. And among the areas which choppers will be used to distribute the exams are places in Tana River County and places in Northeastern Province. And also in places which we have insecurity cases, they have deployed enough personnel, that security officers, to ensure that exams are done in order. It's all systems go here in Mombasa County. And just earlier on, it was pouring heavily here in Mombasa, but it's now shining, which means that everything is in place. And the CS has also put in place that there are 493 examination centers, that's for storage of exams rather, across the country, and 20,000 examination centers. So that's all from Mombasa County, and they will be bringing you more information and keeping you up to speed with what will be happening around the coastal region. Back to you, Alok.
That is Madiga in Mombasa, beg your pardon, giving us an update there that CS Machogu was in Mombasa to oversee the opening of the container at around 6:30 a.m. And of course, everything is set and ready for the examination, which is about to start in the next 3 minutes, if anything to do with time is to go by. And of course, right now, let's cross over now all the way from Mombasa to Kisumu. Wycliffe Okech standing by. Wycliffe Okech, you have got CS for mining and blue economy there speaking during that particular function, opening the container. What is happening in the county of Kisumu?
Victor, good morning to you, and we are coming to you live from Kisumu. Specifically, this is Maseno. We do know that right now the national examinations, the NEC national examinations are currently underway countrywide, and here in Kisumu the situation. Of course, today the government deployed a multi-agency distribution of the examination.
All right, Wycliffe Okech, we've just lost. We just lost Wycliffe Okech. We'll try to reconnect with him later on to give us an update on what's happening. That already he's given us an idea that he's at Maseno Primary School to give us an update on what's happening in the county of Kisumu. All right, let's take a break, and we come back. We still have got so much more, and of course with engineer Crispus Wathimba here talking matters education, just for us to understand what is going to be happening from now until the end of every examination. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
I was part of the team ilitumwa ku take out Burhan. Nilikaa for 5 years, nika study the man. Na tukaenda tukijua kwamba mambo ilikuwa nzuri. All I ask is you let me right my wrongs and give me an opportunity to bring Burhan down for good.
Na una hakika hiki kikosi chako kitaweza kufanya hivyo?
Yes sir. Hii kikosi yako kuna kina nani? Sergeant Farah, aka Stingray, Intelligence. Corporal Ibrahim, aka Mongoose, Intelligence. Corporal Katana, aka Panther, Medic. Cover me! BC Adhiambo, aka
Mandiet,
Machine Gun. PC Kibet, aka
University,
Sniper. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Nasikia wasewa saini tunakuanga wadedi.
Tatu ni polisi kama kisha.
Chini, chini.
Deliver bidhaa kama kawa kuna maswali.
Return to base. I repeat, return to base.
Welcome back. Of course, the examination starting today. If anything to go by, exactly 8:31, so which means that as by the time, all the students should be sitting in their respective classrooms across the country to start writing their papers. Now, engineer, let's talk about the issue of the scramble to have a slot in quote-unquote bigger schools and national schools.
Okay.
This one saw so many teachers and examination cartels, which the government used to call them, to participate in examination cheating and irregularities. But this one somehow is going to change the shift in terms of no one is going to rush to get higher marks to join a national school. It's all about you and your competence.
Yes.
Do you think this is going to change the perception in terms of how to overcrowd the so-called good schools, big schools, national schools?
You know, good schools were defined by academic excellence. Have they been measured with competence excellence? That's the question. Has any of those students from those good schools come out with the best competence that we are measuring today?
Yes.
That is the question we need to answer. None of them has been. So every school is equal today, based on the competence of the child. And therefore, any space you'll occupy, which is called a school, and you can be able to nurture your competence,
yes,
can be as good as the other. What will be different is probably the amenities.
Yeah.
Do you have the laboratories?
Yes.
Do you have the workshop? Do you have the facilities to be able to nurture that competence? But the kind of teachers who will nurture that competence also raises the question, because most of the good schools have been with good teachers who are very good with academics.
Yes.
You know, what we call drilling.
Yes.
Forcing you to understand, you know, English history, weather of America, those kind of things. Are they able now to tell you, take this paper, mold it into a car? Are they able to tell you, take this gadget, make an ICT program that can hack into a bank or something? Those are the questions we need to ask. We are now transitioning these children from a competence-based curriculum at the primary level to, say, a junior high school.
Yeah.
Are the people receiving on the other end able to now grow the talents now that we have discovered, or the competence that we have, of the skills that have already been planted into them? Those are the questions. Therefore, the question of good schools is now out there. It's out for the jury. Every school has an opportunity to define whether it's a good school.
Okay.
By now investing in the facilities.
My director is asking me to ask you that which school did you go to?
I went to Moi Primary in Nakuru and Menengai High School in
Menengai is a good
in
school.
Nakuru.
Yes.
Yes. And if I go to that school today, it's not the same way I left that time.
Yeah.
Because I remember at Menengai High School, we had even workshops for mechanical students. We have rooms
and woodworks
and woodworks and all that. Today, those facilities are not there. But you may find a school somewhere in some rural area which already has those facilities, and therefore it may make a very good carpenter, a very good mason, a very good ICT person, because it already has invested in those facilities, as opposed to maybe Alliance or Kenya High, where they have invested in the academia, which is not what we are looking for right now. So the question of good school is now people are going to define themselves. There are new schools which are coming up, which have even invested in teaching kids how to fly planes, in music, in ICT, because that's where the competence will be able to thrive. Yes.
When you look at the issue of financing from the government now to facilitate the process of getting the facilities in schools and building the classrooms, teacher training, stocking the different classrooms, the government says that a bigger chunk of the revenue goes to education. And when you have got these classes, class now grade 6 and class 8 now, and you have got the next cohort of the new system of education coming on board, perhaps now this one will have to go back to the exchequer to cough more.
This is one of the most difficult things that Kenya needs to accept.
Yes.
That education is not going to be cheap anymore. It's going to be very expensive.
Okay.
And therefore, if you're going to place this burden on the government, who you are, the government is me and you.
Exactly.
Through our tax contribution.
Yes.
And therefore, if you say government will pay, it means we'll have to be taxed more, or more people will have to pay taxes. And therefore, the question of the hustler nation coming on board to contribute to the tax base is very important. And that's why it's important to support the Ruto administration in terms of paying taxes.
Yes. Engineer, let's hold on and let's cross over to Wycliffe Okech in Kisumu. Wycliffe Okech, before we continue, let me ask you a question. In my practice as a journalist, I've never gone to a place called Nyika Plateau. Where is Nyika Plateau in the first place? We learned it in history, in geography. Nyika Plateau. Okay. Wycliffe Okech, all the way from Maseno Primary School. Wycliffe, good morning. Now we can get you a quick update on what's happening there. The CS of mining and the blue economy is there to oversee the process. What more can you tell us from Kisumu County?
Thank you so much, Victor Lowe, back in Nairobi. And we have to say sorry for that technical hitch-up that actually jeopardized this live update earlier on. But then I believe you can now get me very clear. This is Maseno Mixed Primary School here in Kisumu West Sub-County in Kisumu County. Yes, of course, the Cabinet Secretary for Mining and the Blue Economy, that is Salim Mvurya, has been the Cabinet Secretary that was assigned the role to oversee the opening and subsequent distribution of examination papers here in the county of Kisumu. Of course, the opening of the container took place at 6 a.m. as had been scheduled earlier, and there he assured the candidates that the integrity of the examination will be upheld. And talking about upholding the integrity of the examination law, the CS said, as usual, the examination center will have 2 security officers, one manning the exams, of course, and another doing the patrols around the examination center to ensure that the surrounding is secure for the candidates to write their examinations, of course. And the other thing he mentioned about upholding the integrity of the exams is the possession of cell phones within the center. He said that only 2 cell phones will be allowed within the center. One with the center manager, that's the head teacher of the school, and of course one with the security, that is for any emergency communication. And here in Kisumu, of course, just nationally, this is a very special exam period, since this is the first time that the KPSEA, or rather the Kenya Primary School Examination Assessment, is taking place for the first time. That is for the CBC curriculum. And in Kisumu, we are having about 32,918 candidates writing the KPSEA examinations. And for the KCP in Kisumu, we are having 32,876 candidates. Those are distributed across 671 examination centers across the county here. And earlier on, I spoke with the County Director of Education, that is the CDE, Kisumu County, Mr. Peter Munene, as to ask if in case we have any special cases in this exam period, probably any person writing the exams in the hospital or any other. But he said at the moment there are no such cases, but he will keep us updated as the examination rolls by. So basically, right here, as you can see, it is very quiet, silent here. That is an indication that the examination is ongoing. Like if my colleague Martin Kivuti can just basically pan and show you the examination, the security officers manning this area, and the supervisors, of course, to ensure that the exams are taken in a very conducive environment, and the candidates are accorded a level playground. Well, so far we don't have any hitch regarding the management of the exams, but of course we'll be taking rounds across the county and just to ensure to observe how the examination process rolls out and update our viewers promptly. For now, Victor, I will hand it back to you unless you have any question.
And of course, in that particular school, Maseno Mixed Primary School, how many students do we have? And if at all, the issue of feeding program, some schools said that they will be offering food to students so that they don't go back to school. I don't know how it's organized there in Maseno Mixed Primary School. Wycliffe?
All right, here this is Maseno Mixed Primary School, and just across the fence we also have Maseno Girls Primary School. In terms of the feeding program in this school, we haven't really established if such a arrangement is in place. But in Kisumu Girls Primary School, right when we got there, we saw the kids, or rather the candidates, being served the morning breakfast and before they headed for their examination. That is an indication that, of course, that program is there in that particular school. But right where we haven't really established if the candidates will be offered meals for during this examination. But of course, we will be confirming that with the center manager here to help us understand if they also have such arrangement. And of course, that will come to our viewers later in the subsequent updates. Victor.
All right, thank you so much, Wycliffe Okech from Maseno Mixed Primary School in Kisumu County. Please walk around and we'll get in touch later on for more updates. All right, that's Wycliffe Okech from Kisumu County. Now, Engineer, from the look of things, all system go for the students in Kisumu. Let's talk about the issue of the students embracing CBC. On the side of teachers and the parents, it was a hard nut to crack. But for kids, for them it was more of fun. This perhaps is not so hard for them because, for a kid, whatever you give them, that's exactly what they'll consume. So it was on the side of the parents and the teachers because of lack of preparedness. The old system of doing things, then all of a sudden things changed. But for a kid, you tell them fold this one into a boat, into a car, that's exactly what a kid will do. So perhaps teachers and parents should embrace more of CBC moving forward to make it even easy for the kids to accept it.
From my own experience, actually, is that the CBC program was not very taxing for the child. Actually, it was a very good thing for the child because they would be able to demand your parents' presence in their work. They would tell you, Daddy, we have been told we need to do this with you. And there you have no option but to participate actively. So the challenge came now when it came to doing the exams, preparing them for the exam. There was a lot of confusion. Will they do choices? Will there be multiple choices? Will be open-ended questions? Will they need to scribble on an answer sheet? Those kind of issues that came about. But overall, the 3 years from grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6, it was very easy for the children because they were able, the parents were actively involved. The participation of the parent was demanded of, and therefore they were forced to help their children in doing their work. And that helped to alleviate the weight or the burden that comes with schooling in Kenya. But the last few days where there was a bit of confusion in how the examination would be carried out, there I felt a bit of strain on the children. There was too many exams being sent to them to prepare. They felt as if this thing is there was a bit of anxiety.
Exactly.
That was the crowd of anxiety that came over the children, especially the last 2 weeks. But before that, all was very well. For me, the exciting part was the fact that parenting was changed in a way that we look at our relationship between school and being a parent at home.
Yes.
Where your child would come with schoolwork and you'd be forced to participate in that work. And you would see where there are challenges. You could also, you could also be tested.
Exactly.
And then you would ask yourself, how was I taught this thing? I don't want to confuse my child. Can you go back to your teacher? He teaches you or she teaches you the way they understand best, because I don't want to confuse you.
Yes.
Those kind of discussions were there. The conversation between the parent and the child became very intellectual, very skill-based, very knowledgeable. Kids became very curious on issues. For example, when they were being taught about social studies and the county government and the MCAs and the wards and all those things. So they were very interactive. And what is very good is that they are doing an exam during an election year. So a lot of these things that came about in terms of governance, they were able to see them.
And to grasp and translate. All right, I'm going to give you last word because I'm told we are running out of time. Okay. Your son is sitting an examination. You'll have all the rights to wish him all the best on national television. And of course, the benefit of doing that, of course, all the students sitting the examination across the country as a parent and somebody who's also going through classroom, you can take that opportunity to run with it.
Thank you so much. I just want to wish all the students sitting out for the exam the very best, and especially the kids at Seedlings Junior, where my son Bradley is sitting for the exam. I wish them the very best. But I also want to pray for the administration to really carry out this process very well and protect children from any challenges that may be brought about by mismanagement. Wish them very well, and thank you so much for having this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
That
is indeed Crispus Wathimba talking to us matters education. 3.4 million students sitting the examination, which has already started, and we wish them all the best here on KBC Channel 1. We all went through examination. You have to do your best. All right. That's why we wrap it up on today's Eye on Politics, but we've gone education direction. Very good. Let's take a break. GMK continues after this. Good morning.
Taita Kipyegon Arap Towet was born in 1925 and started his education at Litein Primary School before joining Kabyanga Mission School. In the 1948 Kenya African Preliminary Examination, he emerged the top candidate in the country and joined Alliance High School. From there, he proceeded to Makerere College in Uganda. He would then enroll for a correspondence course with the South African University and obtained his Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy. He would later study for a Master of Philosophy degree at the University of Nairobi and a doctorate in linguistics at the same institution. He first joined politics in 1958 when he was elected to the Legislative Council to represent Kericho District. When the Kenya African Democratic Union KADU party was formed in 1960, he became its chief advisor and even claimed prophecy of the death of the Kenya African National Union KANU within the following 4 months. In 1963, Towet joined KANU without the consent of his party, getting elected into office as the first member of parliament for Bureti constituency. When KADU was dissolved in 1964 and merged with KANU, he refused to cross the floor of the House and was the only one who took the option of seeking a fresh mandate from the electorate. He lost in the by-election to Alexander Arabi, staying out in the political cold until 1969 when he recaptured the seat. After the 1969 election, Kenyatta, who had since become president, appointed him Minister for Education, where he served until 1974. He was re-elected in 1974, where he continued serving in the education docket until 1979, but lost in 1979 during President Daniel Arap Moi's tenure. Towet lost his parliamentary seat to Professor Jonathan Ngeno and attempted a comeback in 1988, only to bow out of the race because of what he termed as dirty politics. In the early 90s, during the clamor for multipartyism, he advocated for a partyless state. He would be appointed as a director of KANU's Kenya Times Media Trust, which owned the now defunct Kenya Times newspaper, and did not return to parliament until 1992, when KANU nominated him to the House. He was also appointed chairman of the Kenya Seed Company. On 8 October 2007, Towet was involved in an accident in Free Area 6 kilometers from Nakuru town. The politician did not survive the crash. He was 82 when he died.
Exactly 10 minutes to the top of the hour. Welcome back to the program. You're still on Good Morning Kenya. From Matters Education, we now move to parenting and adoption. My guest is here to help us understand all about that, the process, the legalities. At what point do you even decide you're going to do this? She'll be talking to us about this and so much more. That is Lydia Ndiho, who is a wealth manager. Welcome to the program, Lydia.
Thank you, Doreen.
This is, I was just telling you off air that this is one of those conversations that there's really quite a lot
yes,
to talk about. There's quite a lot. Now, before we get to even the nitty-gritties of understanding at what point do you decide, if you even decide, or sometimes it's circumstances, let's just start by understanding your story. Where did this emanate from? Because you are a parent,
yes.
You adopted.
Yes.
So where did this begin from?
I think for me it was the struggle to have a biological child. So I have PCOS.
Yeah.
Something that I was told is easy to fix, and that I would be pregnant, you know, like this.
What's PCOS first?
So PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. It ranges from, it gives you many issues, but basically it's hormonal imbalances, it's not ovulating. So you can't get pregnant if you're not ovulating. So it affects about 20% of the people, and is one of the biggest causes of infertility.
Okay.
Yeah. So having been diagnosed with PCOS in 2010 and told, you know, this is not going to be such a challenge, you'll be fine. So accepting that the one thing that, as I was telling you, women do easily is give birth, and realizing that it's not going to be as easy as you think. And then now starting the journey, the fertility treatments, the different options that the doctors will give you. So after about 6 years, now we needed to make a decision.
Let's just backtrack a bit, because one of those symptoms, I understand, sometimes it could be even missing your monthly periods.
Yes.
So while you're growing up, even as a teenager, young adult, this was just coming normally?
What I had was heavy menses.
Okay.
Very heavy menses.
Did this worry you at some point?
No, because you
just
know,
comfortable and
most people will tell you, you'll be fine. As in, once you have a child, that is like the story I had the most. Once you have a child, the heavy menses go away. The pain goes away, because it was very painful, heavy menses. And so it would be a range of, like, the first 2 days, even in high school, I'd have to go see the nurse for painkillers. So, but every doctor never thought there's something really wrong. To them, it was teenagehood. It will get better when you get a child.
And your hormones are just acting up.
Yet my hormones literally are acting up. Because I mean, at some point, you're like, am I normal? So I remember we went to see different doctors, and for most of them, they'd be like, once you have a child, it will even out. The pain will ease. But later on is when I discovered, when you're having heavy menses, that you're not too sure what's going on, see a gyna. Testing has become a long way now, so see a gyna. Yeah.
In hindsight, when you think about it, Lydia, I know sometimes, you know, things of nature and even how things are, you really can't quite reverse. But in hindsight, do you feel like maybe if I would have gone to a gyna as opposed to just seeing doctors, it would have helped the situation? Did you ever, even before you got to deciding, okay, let me adopt?
For me, I thought, at least we know what the problem is.
Okay.
That was my view. We know what the problem is, we can fix it. And the other thing we're really good at is being Dr. Google. So we had Googled the symptoms. So, I mean, really, for me it was, I'm glad now I know what the problem is, we can fix it. As compared to, oh, shikes, what did I do wrong? It was, I think my mindset was different. It was, now that I know what the problem is, we can fix it. Yeah.
So at this point in 2010, now you are fully diagnosed that this is actually why you are having heavy menses. This is why they were prolonged for some time. This is actually the condition.
Yes.
And you see, for some women, sometimes it sort of comes as a pregnancy centers that, you know, this is it. If you ever think of getting pregnant, like literally, this is a no-no for you.
Yes.
What really came through your mind, much as the doctor told you, Itaisha too, you might actually...
I think it's shock. Then you realize okay, now I have answers to what I've been going through, like you have crazy mood swings, especially during your periods, and you're always like, why am I this? I mean, moody,
extra
than most people. Like, you're really moody. So I'll be like, okay, now this answers a lot of questions, but you also feel, gosh, isn't it meant to be easier? Because I mean, getting pregnant is meant to be easy.
Yes.
I think you grow up with people around you having children easily. Like, for me, I don't remember a point where I knew someone who's struggling to have a child. Most people would have.
So there's no history of that, even from your family.
Yeah,
even relatives, also extended
family.
There was nothing of that
There's nothing of that sort.
So this came strange to you.
Yeah, it was very strange. I was like, okay, because most people have kids easily, you know. It's, you decide, oh, now I'm on child number 4, maybe perhaps I need to stop. But it was never, I'm struggling to have a child. What I'd seen a few is miscarriages, but never, I can't get pregnant. Yeah.
So at first you were really shocked. Yes, the doctor's words looked affirmative, that yes, it's PCOS, but yours is not really that bad. But still there was some bit of doubt within you.
Okay.
So now this is 2010.
Yes.
Before you actually go to adopting in 2016.
Yes.
Walk us through that journey between 2010 and 2016. Did you really try?
Yes, so for me, it was continuous trying. I'm those people who I do not give up.
Giving up is never an option.
No, it is not. We must do it. So it was doctor after doctor, referrals. Because now what happens is, once they give you a diagnosis and you don't get pregnant within an year or so, they refer you now to the infertility person, the infertility doctor. So your regular guy now will try what they know. Then they'll be like, okay, this now you go see my professor, go see so-and-so who their sub division of medicine in Ghana is infertility. So now I was referred to a doctor like that. So we did fertility pills, we did injections, so we had done quite a bit. So now it reached a point where the doctor was like, let's try IVF. Now, PCOS and IVF, that's a very tricky situation.
Why is that?
Because we produce too many eggs. So you can go into some shock syndrome.
Okay.
So for me, I read the risks. I was like,
it's not what
let me just take a pause now and think through what my other options are. Am I willing to take this risk? I think that was what in my mind was the question. Am I willing to take this risk for my health? Because also at that point, your health has also taken quite a beating because of the fertility pills. So you have gained a lot of weight, you are unhappy because you're moody all the time. You inject yourself a lot because injectables, you have a schedule for how you inject yourself. So it's draining. It's emotionally tiring and draining. So I think in now beginning of 2016, I was like, let me take a break for a little while. Let me look at other options.
So this actually is already 6 years of trying.
Just trying to get this very elusive baby. So I was like, let me take a break.
Before you actually even go further to 2016, let's just still stick within these 6 years. I mean, we're living there. We are Africans.
Yes.
Kenyans very specifically.
Yes.
And so we have our African culture.
Yes.
You know, you're married there, you're having your partner. What is even your family saying at this point? And how is this impacting you as a person?
Interesting enough, from our not our extended family per se, but the family we interacted with, most of them didn't have comments or didn't ask questions. I think they were like, are we sure we want to venture in and find out what is really going on? Because, you know, now you have to deal with the emotions. And plus, I don't think I gave people room. I was always really moody. I did have energy. So if you came at me, I knew I'd just come back at you.
You know, the African mothers, whether you're moody or not,
they will still ask.
Yeah,
so the people now, the pressure came from one, internally for both of us, because we really wanted a child, and then our extended, not that cluster of family, but now the bigger cluster that would ask you.
Extended.
Yeah, would ask
like
you,
uncles, aunties.
Like your
further than that?
Further than that, because my uncles and aunties, and his uncles, aunties, and cousins, and my cousins never asked too many questions. They'll be like, you're not pregnant here. What's happening? Oh, I'm struggling. Okay. I mean, not too many questions. But now the other... Extras. This one's, you go for a function. Hey, Kwani, what's going on? Then, you know, we'll tell you, bado ziko kwa miguu, hajakuja. You know, but there's even a time now I took two. If you ask me that question, I tell you, instead of asking me, have you asked God? Please go and ask God this story. Don't ask me. God will give you an answer. Because I'm like, I'm tired of answering this question. So it was more the extended, like, you know, those people who are in your circle of friends, those are the ones now who will ask you the strangest questions. But, and then now, like, my grandmother would always be like, madam, what's going on with you? And then she'd, hey, the solutions I had from, especially that age group in this 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Let's start with those strangest questions, then you tell us the solutions in which they were giving you to have a child.
So I'd have the strangest comments, especially now when I started talking about my experience, because I was like, no one is talking about this, and it's really stressing me. So me, I'm those people who will share. And I would share, and you'd hear, so now, those drugs, they're not the ones causing you even more effect for not getting pregnant. I'm like, the drugs are helping, they're not hurting, but okay. Or someone would tell me, perhaps maybe you need to stop thinking about it. It will happen. You're the one who is overthinking things. I'm like, overthinking things? The others will tell me, you know, the strangest ones were, I need to go do a ritual at home and...
Got to that point?
Yeah, I was given stories. Go do a ritual, it will cleanse. There's some herbs where you're looking at that herb, you're being told to drink, you're like, that is not entering my mouth. There's some I tried.
Like the rituals, the herbs?
No, the rituals, no. I was like, these rituals, first I don't even know why we're doing the ritual. Okay, I know why we're doing it, but what's the... As in, I was like, I don't understand the point of this. But the herbs, there's some I drank because I was like, okay, this makes sense. The others who offered their brothers, their siblings, I'm like...
Taking the problem is your partner.
Yes. So if you and my brother hook up, you get a child, but he'll pass it off as your partner's child. And your problem will be solved. I'm like, really? This is where we've come to in these suggestions of life. So I think that I think was the ones that I was like,
they're just too off.
They're too off. They're just, I'm like, The rituals one was really off. That one I was like, because I was being told you break a pot with some water that you fetched, and then some guy will come and do purifying things, and then I'm like, first, I grew up Christian, so me, I've not seen these rituals being done anywhere. So, so yeah, there were many suggestions.
So, I mean, all this is happening. Reasons are being given here and there, and as you've said, not from like the close family, from the really extended, not so much close. They're giving you suggestions and solutions. What impact is this rubbing off of you?
I think first you get very, very annoyed. It's a lot of anger. Because already, remember, you're dealing with the fertility treatments. You're dealing with scheduling your life around...
Here you're hoping to actually get pregnant as a woman.
Yes. So you're scheduling your life around, when am I doing injections? When am I going to see the doctor? There are times you have to go for a scan in the morning at 7 in the morning. So you're scheduling your whole life between work and getting a baby. That's your schedule. There's also life, weddings, whatnot. Things are happening, yeah? So when the such people come and give you suggestions, what happens first is you feel deflated, because you're like, of all the things you could come and tell me, you could not come and give me an encouraging word. Just come and tell me. It will be well. I appreciated those ones, because literally they have nothing else to tell you, which is fine.
Yeah.
So I've opened up to you to tell you my struggle, the solution you've given me is so out there. I'm thinking, so first it's anger, then you're deflated. You're like, I'm not sure about what is going on with this world, but yes. So I literally telling someone that during that period of time, I learned to live a day at a time. Literally, a day at a time. Because when you finish the day, you're like, okay, today it wasn't too bad. I've not had strange things. It's a good day.
Today is a good day.
Today is a good day. And trust me, if you talk to women who've struggled to get babies, we hear very strange things.
There's quite a lot out there.
Yeah, hey, there's quite a lot.
A lot of ideas and suggestions as to why.
Yes.
All right, so then now 6 years later, all this has happened. Now you're actually realizing and you're even getting peace within yourself. This is it. I have tried, you know, the various forms you've told us, the injections, the drugs, the doctors, gynae, and I realize, wait a moment, this actually can't happen. How did you decide within yourself, so now I am adopting, just before you get to the process?
I think for me it was a lot of reflection. So my partner is actually the one who came up with this idea of adopting. And I was struggling with it because I'm like, am I giving up one dream? Am I actually giving up on this dream? It's been my entire focus of life for the last 6 years. I have focused on one thing, getting a child. That's it. That has been my main goal in life. Not going on holiday, not
even enjoying life.
No, getting pregnant, carrying this baby full time. So all of a sudden now we have to reset because it's not happening. And I'm like, given also the amount of money we've spent, so you pause and you're like, okay. So I remember just going through the process of accepting that this may never happen. It's not actually gosh, it may, if it happens one day, fine. If it doesn't happen, it's also okay. But getting to that point where I say, I'm going to be okay with it. And then 2, ensuring, not feeling like I'm trading one dream for another. Accepting the situation, that I can be a mother through other ways. It's not just this. Remember, my mind is focused on this one way. So now just saying, I can be a mother in other ways. But just that process of thinking through it, accepting, processing the emotions of feeling like, gosh, I failed, I've given up.
Like you failed?
Yes, you feel like you failed. Because truthfully, there's a book I like telling people to read. It's called Even the Cheerleader is Pregnant. As in, there is no one, there's a point in time where everyone around you is pregnant. Especially when you go to the village and you find the teen moms, your age mates, even women older than you are all pregnant. As in, it's like a season. And then you're like, maybe I'm then drinking from the wrong pot of water. As in, you know, literally, everyone is pregnant. That's when you're like,
something could be wrong.
Something could be wrong. As in, you just feel, gosh, the one thing that my body is meant to do easily, it can't do.
The body has failed you.
Yeah.
You feel the body has failed
you. Yes.
All right. So then, how long did this take? I mean, just going by what you're telling us, that now you actually got to a point and you realized it's not happening anymore for you. You have tried all that you think you could have tried. You have spent your resources, quite an amount full, so to speak. So then how long did it take to just reconcile within yourself, accept that this is it? This is it.
It took me about 6 months.
Just to decide?
Just to decide.
You went through for 6 years?
Yes, that we are going to do this in a different way. It took me about 6 months to just accept that this is not going to happen. Then after that, now is when I was like, okay, so I've been told about this option called adoption. Let's figure out how it works and let's find information on it. That took me a while to process, to just say.
Took you a while to process on everything.
On everything.
So then how does this process look like? So this is now 6 months later. You have decided you can't get pregnant through the biological way, but you can be a mother through other forms.
Yes.
Talk to us about the process of adoption.
Okay,
At what point did you start from?
So for me, I did my research and found out in Kenya, adoption starts with an agency. So you have to go to an agency and get paperwork for whatever for the adoption. You can't just like go to a children's home and no. So you go to the adoption agency. So we went to one and we got the paperwork. So you fill in quite a number of forms. I usually say,
this is now 2016 still?
2016 in November.
Okay.
Yeah, October, November, because it took us about 2 months to just fill all the paperwork, do the medical tests, and then just get the whole file together and return it back to the adoption agency. After which, now we got, they come and vet you, so you'll meet with a counselor and a social worker, just to confirm that what you wrote on the form is correct, one, and two, you're mentally ready to adopt. Because sometimes you can be thinking it's a very good idea, but you're not ready for it. So we met with them, we talked, then now it goes to a vetting committee to confirm that you can adopt. So once the vetting committee says yes, then now they look and place you with a child. Yeah.
So this takes like around how long?
For us, from the time we returned the forms to when they said yes was November to February 2017. Then now we waited from February. We got our daughter in July.
In July, this is now July of
2017.
2017.
Yeah.
You just earlier on said that sometimes someone may not be ready.
Yes.
How is that? I mean, like, let's take you as case in point. At this point, you've already gone through the hell and high waters. You've decided. So
yes.
This is like 6 months.
Yes.
Some could even take a year, 12, even 10, depending on how someone is wired. So then how would you not be ready? Just explain, how does it work?
So for some people, you might be okay with the idea of adoption, but mentally, you're not. You're like, you have an sometimes you have this attitude of, I'm helping this child. No, you're not helping the child. The child is just fine. However, it needs to be at a point where you know that you're going to accept this child, that this is your child, that she may not have been born of your tummy, but this is your child. Some people may never accept that, which is fine, but for the social worker and for the counselor, then that person should not be able to adopt. But for most people, I think we openly love children. I think it's an African thing. We just like children. So I don't think there are many people who struggle with it, but that's like the main point is for them to make sure that you're going to accept this child will be fine in your home and will thrive. Yeah.
You talked of an adoption agency. I mean, we are living in a country where children could almost be everywhere. Could be in the streets, depending on circumstances, could be in orphanages, could be even sometimes just left in the community. Maybe the parents are incarcerated, something just might have happened here and there. So then you can't go to the orphanage and just request that I want to. How does this one work?
So the adoption agency makes sure that the child that is in the orphanage is free for adoption. Again, there are very many kids in orphanages that are not free for adoption. Case in point, if you're incarcerated, you give birth in prison, that child is not free for adoption. So they might be in a children's home because no one else picked the child from, no one else in your extended family could take care of your child, and you're in prison. So that child is not free for adoption. It might be a child whose parents are known, but
just hold it there. Let me understand this. Maybe you can elucidate on it a bit further. So this is a parent, and sometimes could even be parents, both incarcerated. And just as you rightfully put, no one in the extended family, was available or didn't want to pick the child. So how is this child then not free for adoption? The parents are not there. The uncles, aunties, community, they're not there for the child.
Because most times that person is also not willing to give up their parental rights.
Much as they're not available,
they don't want to give up their parental right. Or for example, you're going to be in prison for maybe 4 years. So you're like, after 4 years, I'll pick my child. And so they don't give up parental rights to this child. Because for the child to be adopted, the person must give up their parental right to this child. So those ones won't. which other thing. Other times, this child is known the origin. But either the mother is not psychologically fine, they have a mental health case issue, so the child is put in the home until the mother is able to bring up the child. There are cases where the child was left with the grandparents are too old, the home takes over and brings up the child. But you'll find that this child every holiday goes home to see the grandparents.
Much as they are in a
children's home.
Children's home, yeah.
Or a care facility, as they're called.
Yeah.
So it depends. So it's the work of the adoption agency to protect you as an adoptive or potentially adoptive parent, to make sure that you also don't bond with a child who is not available for adoption. Because you can imagine the heartbreak.
This is like a double second.
Yes.
So then you're saying that, you know, a parent who cannot give up their adoptive rights, so this would potentially make the child not free for adoption.
Yes.
So in the event or in cases where children from the streets or the street families or the street children, then how does this one go? How does this work?
Unless that child is collected by the cops somewhere on a street, in a gutter somewhere, a lot of the street families take care of their own children. So those ones have parental rights. The same way the street mother has the same parental right I have.
Okay.
So the child cannot be taken from them. Because if they prove that they have capacity to take care of their child, you can't take their child from them. In Kenya, the law is that the child stays with the parent or the original family as much as it can possibly be facilitated. If we now move it to adoption is usually the last case or the last known course to go for the government and even the children's homes to do. They'd prefer to integrate the child back into their home, into their family, into their roots. Yeah.
I hear you. We are due for a break, actually, at this moment, but also when we come back, I'd want us to talk about perhaps the details, the description. How does it go for, you know, even just in your case, you can give us an example from your case. Were there something peculiar that you wanted, anything different? Because I want to believe, you know, by the time you're choosing to be a mother, even through giving birth, there's a way you're already picturing your child.
Yes,
so
there
does the same also apply when you're adopting, and how does it go with the agency? What does the law say, for instance, and how did you go about it? All right, time for that breather. We recoil with plenty more of this conversation, so stay with us.
I was part of the team yenye ilitumwa ku take out Burhan. Nilikaa huko 5 years, nika study the man. Na tukaenda tukijua kwamba mambo yalikuwa nzuri. All I ask is you let me right my wrongs and give me an opportunity to bring Burhan down for good.
Na una hakika hiki kikosi chako kitaweza kufanya hivyo?
Yes, sir.
Hii kikosi yako kuna kina nani?
Sergeant Farah, aka Stingray, Intelligence. Corporal Ibrahim, aka Mongoose, Intelligence. Corporal Katana, aka Panther, Medic. Come on me! PC Adhiambo, aka
Maliet,
Machine Gun. PC Kibet, aka
University,
Sniper. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Nasikia wase hivi tunakuanga wadedi.
Tatu ni polisi kama sisi.
Chini.
Deliver bidhaa kama kawa kuna maswali.
return to base. I repeat, return to base.
Make transactions anywhere in the world with the NCBA Visa card and stand a chance to win big. Join the FIFA World Cup 2022 when you win an all-expenses-paid trip for you and your +1 to watch 2 games. Or win exciting weekly prizes that will make your FIFA viewing experience super duper. All it takes is a swipe or a tap to pay 2,000 Kenya shillings or more with your NCBA Visa debit or credit card. The more you swipe or tap to pay, the higher your chances of winning with 1 point for every 2,000 Kenya shillings spent. Don't miss out. NCBA. Go for it.
Welcome back, and this morning I have created First Time with Lydia Ndiho, who is a wealth manager, of course, talking to us on matters and issues of parenting and child adoption and everything you need to know in this particular space. Now, just let's get into what I wanted us to talk about before you took that break. So, details, specificity, descriptions, does the same apply when you want to adopt a child, and how does it go?
Yes, it does. So in the form that you fill, they'll ask you for a description of a child.
This is like on the onset?
On the onset. So what do you want this child to look like? Yeah. Do you want them to match your color of eyes, the hair? Maybe you want curly hair. I mean, really, you're allowed to be really descriptive. Do I want twins? Do I want a boy? Do I want a girl? Do I want special needs, a special needs child? Do I want, for me, I requested a child who has asthma or something like that, because at least that I understand. So what special needs do you want this child to have? You might want a child who has some sort of condition that you're comfortable dealing with. So they will ask you all such questions. Ethnicity is hard, because sometimes if this child was picked, you wouldn't know. And usually we don't know the mothers. In Kenya, adoption is closed, so you won't know who the mother of the child is, especially if the child was collected from the streets. So if this child was collected from the streets, how will you know ethnicity? But there's some people who will go down to the nitty-gritty of ethnicity. But most times it's just not possible, because these are children who've been abandoned. So most of the time, tracing ethnicity is literally
quite difficult.
Yeah.
All right. What do you mean by in Kenya adoption is closed?
So in Kenya, we do not have, our law does not allow us to interact with the family that's giving you the child.
Unlike how it is in the West?
And like in the US, where the adoptions are open, where the birth mother will meet the adoptive mother and they'll exchange contacts, and you'll see a lot of, like these children know their roots. In Kenya, this child, you will tell the child if, we advocate for, tell the child that they're adopted. However, they most likely will learn about their origins when they turn 21, because then they can request for their file, their adoption file. But even on that file, there's some people who you won't find any details.
Yeah, like if they were collected from the streets,
all you will know, all you will know is that you were collected from some gutter somewhere. But if it was, even if it is a mother offer, where the mother and the father have given up their parental rights to this child, when you give up your parental rights as a mother offer and a father offer, because both parents usually do need to give up their rights, I, who is adopting your child, will never meet you or know you.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing as you juxtapose that with what happens in the West? Because you've just said, like there, it's really open. You will know even the grandfather, for instance, of the child you are taking. But when you come down to Africa and Kenya specifically, you are like the first parents.
Yes.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing in your own analysis, also from your experience?
I think from my experience, it's a good thing, because then truthfully I don't think I want the child to know what her story is until she's at an age she can understand her story. Because in Kenya our adoptions are not, the kids who are free for adoptions rarely are they mother orphans. It is children who are either thrown into a pit latrine, you know,
so
picked from the street.
How it is in the West.
Yeah. So there's no birth mother per se for her to trace. So I'm like, do I really want her to know that she was picked from the streets at 2 days? No, let's wait until she's at a certain age and she can actually process the information. Because a lot of us, even if you can't take care of your kids, your sister will take care of them, your brother will. We are very community oriented nation. So by the time we're getting to a point where this child now literally is in the system, all other things have failed. Yeah.
So if it's a community-wise,
yes,
relatively,
yes,
it has failed.
It has failed.
You take it
that child is going to a children's home.
All right, I hear you. And just allow me to ask this, Lydia. You just said that even while you're having your list, your description, you requested for a child who has asthma. One would imagine that if you are choosing to adopt, unlike when you're giving birth, you could have the options to actually say, I want the finest things in life.
Yes.
Like I want a child disease-free, like healthy. Why did you decide on that?
Why? Truthfully, it was just, at least I know how to handle that one. And for me, in my mind, I was like, it has to be a child that, I don't think I was looking for perfection. That's it. I wasn't looking for perfection. And I knew, most likely, if you're a child with asthma, the likelihood of you being adopted is also not very high. Because you know, childhood asthma comes with its own eczema, your skin is having issues, your breathing is difficult. You know, there's some kids who they play in dirt and they have the cough of a lifetime. So I was like, let's do something that I'm comfortable with. This child doesn't have to be perfect. But a lot of people who've adopted in the community, I mean, have adopted perfectly well children, and those children are now thriving. So it depends. I think you also do a lot of soul searching. What do you want? I know people who have adopted special needs children, and me, I'm like, you are my hero. Because you'd have picked a perfectly healthy child.
You had the choice.
You had the choice.
Like when you are
giving birth. But this lady will choose that I want a special needs child, and they'll pick a child either with autism or cerebral palsy, as in, you know, this very involving type of thing. And you see these children in our community thriving, and they're happy, and you're like, so to each person you choose your
I mean, even the good word of the Lord says that whatever burden he allows you with, because you know he has well equipped you for it, and you can actually handle it regardless, whether it's coming naturally or really literally have to make a choice on it. All right, so talk to me about the cost, even just for someone who's watching and maybe perhaps even they've given birth to children and they feel like, I'd also want to adopt much as already given birth, or someone who's really been like in your journey and they really can't quite. What really is the cost? How is it attached to it, and how do you plan even for it?
Okay, so you have a cost that you pay the adoption agency, which is a processing fee. The government put a cap on it. I think it is now 12,500 shillings. However, we have a government adoption agency.
Wait, so this 12,000 is what you pay the agency to do all these processes?
Yes.
For you. All right, okay.
So make sure that the child is free for adoption, make sure the paperwork is correct. Actually, literally, they source the child from wherever. So as I was telling you, you might be in Nairobi and your child has been found in Kisumu, you will travel to Kisumu. You might be in Kisumu and the child has been found in Mombasa, you will travel to Mombasa and see the child. It's never domiciled to your county. So the adoption agency has to do all this paperwork and stuff. So you understand it's an administration cost. However, we have a government adoption agency that does it for free. However, their waiting list on the other hand, is very low.
You'll really wait.
You'll wait. Their waiting list is 2 to 5 years. So you'll wait a while. But for them it's free because the government, subsidizes the cost.
Okay.
So, and then after that, now the legal cost. So going back to my process. So once the child was found, we went and picked her. So when we picked her, first there's bonding. So you take some time off work and you go bond with this child for about 5 to 7 days.
Whichever place the
child is. So you bond, you make sure that you're comfortable, you and her or you and him can get along. Because it also has to click. Like, I met my daughter and I knew she was the one. As in, you didn't need to tell me anything. But there are some people it doesn't do that, it doesn't click like that. So you take the child. If you want to do like you want to do a test on the child, like for some people they want to do a HIV test and stuff like that, you're allowed to do that during those 5 to 7 days. And then you take the child home and you start your journey with this child.
So this is just 1 week of bonding.
1 week of bonding, then you now have what they call supervised visits for 3 months. So for those 3 months, the agency is checking on you and the children's home is checking on you to just make sure you guys are okay. If you're having challenges, they help you deal with the challenges, be it feeding, because also this child has just had to adjust to a lot. As much as you're adjusting, even the child is adjusting, so it's the little things. Like for my daughter, I remember when she came, she was not a hugger. She was like, this hugging business that my mother...
How would you tell? She was 6 months.
She just stood coil. She's like, why you just in my space, all over me. But now, she's all over. She's a hugger. She hugs everyone. She wants to hang out with everyone. She'll come and cozy next to you. Then she would be like, let me play. So you notice slight differences as time goes by. When she came, she liked milk. She didn't like food much. Now you should see her. She can't stand milk. She eats whatever she wants to eat. So the changes, as you're growing up, as she's growing up, you see the changes. So the first 3 months are challenging because she's also adjusting to you, adjusting to your routine, adjusting to a new environment. But then you find a routine, it starts working, you're okay. So the children's agency that you used to adopt, the adoption agency, will write your report, which will now take...
This is after how long?
3 months.
After 3 months.
When they're confident that you guys have settled and bonded, it can take a little longer, but they need to be comfortable that you guys have settled and bonded. Then they write you like a semi-report and a letter that you now take to your lawyer. So legal fees in Kenya are a bit tricky, but you can pay. For most lawyers I have met, you can pay in installments.
Okay.
I think family lawyers are a bit more friendly in that way. Or you can represent yourself. So different lawyers have come together and have a self-presentation where you just go to court and present yourself, because adoption is straightforward. The police report has already been done. All the other reports have been done. So it's just you explaining your case to a judge.
Okay.
So for us, we paid our legal fees, we paid it in installments. It took us about 8 months to get through the court process. Why? Truthfully, we went to court on the year that we were having elections, and the elections petitions were many.
So disclaimer, if you're thinking of this, avoid
please,
election year.
yes, because it takes a little longer, because if the judges, you see, the same judges who run family court have jurisdiction over elections. So that year, because the election petitions were many, family court judges were opted into that process. It doesn't take too long when they're out, but still there's a backlog that now they catch up with. So that was it. So it was 8 months. Then now we started the other process, which is getting a birth certificate.
Just as you would
as any other child, with your names and everything else.
All right, so clearly there's a cost quite attached to it. That's why there's a lot of preparation that needs to be put in place by the time you're deciding you're doing this. But also, let me just backtrack on something that you said. And this is in respect to bonding, the first time bonding that you already identified the child is the child that you want with the various descriptions that you've already given. You've been told they're in Mombasa, you are in Nairobi, so you have to travel down there for that 1 week. So in the event you've actually gone there and you realize after 2 days there's no click, what does the process dictate?
So you will call back your social worker at the adoption agency and say that this is not working. Let's continue the search.
Just like that?
Just like that. Because you also don't want to pick a child that you're not comfortable with. I've seen situations where someone has picked a child and in 3 months they can't, so they take the child back.
And you can imagine they've already been in that environment.
So if, truthfully, if you are not bonding with this child, which is normal, it's okay, we accept it. Just talk to your adoption agency, your social worker will be like, okay, that's fine. She'll talk to the home and the process will continue. Like the search will continue for you.
The search will continue. Now let's come back home to the family aspect. At least for you, you know, your partner, both of you are in consensus and in agreement. This is what you want to do. And also good enough for you, your close family members, they're not like, you know, in Africa, in Kenya, we don't do things such as this. You have to be, you know, at least for you it was positive in that regard. But from even the friends, extended family, what is the best time to start telling them that based on the circumstance, this is what we are going with?
So you can choose. You can choose to tell them earlier so that they get rid of all their biases by the time they're coming back into your space. Or they can see the child and ask you questions. So depending on how you want to approach it, for both of us it was easier because the only buy-in we needed was both parents on both sides, and that was it. After that we're like, the rest of you will see the child and we'll know the child came. However, as time went by, now someone would ask me a question and I would, you know, explain what adoption is. There's a lot of bias. There's a lot of mtoto ni wa kununuliwa, huyo alinunua wapi, as in there's all those nasty comments. So before those nasty comments come your way, you either choose, am I going to say it earlier, so that there's no
any form of negativity,
or you choose now. When they see the child, they're like, oh, you got a child.
So for you did say early enough and the reception was very positive.
Yeah, so for
even
us,
from those extendeds who are asking you earlier on, what is wrong with you?
Those ones those ones we didn't tell them. They came, we called them. When the child came, you know, there's that, there's a Kikuyu ceremony for welcoming the child. Those ones, now you call them for that ceremony so that they see the child and they get over it. And most of them will not have the guts to ask you, when you were pregnant and I didn't know. I think a lot of them figured out much later that she was adopted. But before,
so
no.
you just deal with it.
I mean, you deal with it.
It's a choice I made.
Yes, and we are okay with the choice.
With the choice. What was the most difficult part in all this, particularly when it comes to the adoption bit?
I think one is the adjustment. So as I was telling you, you have 9 months to adjust to a pregnancy. You know that this is my expected due date. You know, there's a sort of certainty.
You have a whole 9 months to sort of prepare.
There's certainty. I know the day. I kind of know the particular time. But with adoption, there's no certainty. You can actually wait 1 year. You can wait 3 months. You can wait 4 years. But then now when the call comes that you go bond, you only have 7 days to get this child home. So it means getting clothes. You know, the parenting part. I think that usually the adjustment is hard. Or you better prepare for it. Both financially and mentally, because literally you don't have the 9 months. You don't have a certain date. Like for us guys, you see, we were told in February, just wait. And in Kenya, truthfully, it's harder to adopt a girl than a boy. The wait is longer for a girl than a boy.
It's harder to adopt a girl than it is for a boy?
You wait longer to adopt a girl than to adopt a boy.
What has gender got to do with the adoption?
Don't ask. Most people want to adopt girls, they don't want to adopt boys. So the boys are much more in the system than the girls.
So this is why.
This is why.
Okay, makes sense.
So you will wait, you'll be told, oh, you know, Lydia, this can be a long wait. So after a while, you even stop calling your social worker. You're like, he'll call me when things are working out. So by the time she's calling you to when you need to get there, bond with the child, pick the child, and come back home, at most you have 2 weeks, at most. So it's also that uncertainty where you're like, when will this phone call come? When will they call me? Well, I wonder where the child will be from. As in, there's all these thoughts running through your mind. So that was a bit more difficult. Then just the adjustment to motherhood. I think I believe that if you don't have a good support system, the adjustment is a bit crazy. But all in all, you take it in. Because the child comes with unique needs. And they were in an institution. Always remember that a children's home, as much as it is loving and caring, it's an institution. They have set bedtimes, set eating times, because the home needs to run efficiently, okay? So that child is going to also have to adjust. So for both of you, the adjustment is a bit, it's bumpy, but it works. Yeah.
I hear you. So then we are in agreement, and we know that in Kenya it's closed in terms of adoption. So chances of perhaps meeting the birth mother are very slim, or even slimmer than slim. But we have those peculiar cases. There always can't be an indifferent.
Yes. Yes.
Even just from you perhaps going around, doing your research, going through the process of adoption, has this ever occurred? Have you ever, excuse me, have you ever perhaps just, had that case that a couple or a parent or an individual adopted a child, and then 3 years later, the birth mother just originated from someone, they said, I want my child?
There are a few cases. And most of the time...
So they actually do exist?
They do exist, yes. Okay. And most of the time they do exist because the person didn't follow due process. Kenyans like shortcuts. We really like them. Shortcuts make us happy. Because you're like, why am I waiting 2 years? And I can, I know someone. That I know someone will cost you. And especially impact that child. But if you can prove that your child was taken from you in a malicious way, and you can prove that you want your child back, the judge has a right to revoke adoption. And just...
This is from the High Court?
Now from the High Court, and then now both parents will be asked to meet and discuss. Because you as a parent who adopted the child, unless you were perhaps part of the scheme, the judge will give you an option of continuing to talk to this child, and you come up with a co-parenting
so you'll
type
co-parent with the original,
original birth mother or the father. However, if you were part of the scheme, then you may never have access to that child again. But that's usually a judgment call. The judge will, again, in Kenya, the law is about the best thing for the child. It's always in the best interest of the child. So if in the best interest of the child is for this child to continue staying with you and the birth mother has access, fine. Or the birth mother takes custody of the child. But those cases are fewer than, they're so few. But if you trace the roots of that case, most of the time, either someone dropped the ball. Either the police didn't do a good job in the investigations. There was something that happened. And for this woman to have traced her child to you, because it basically means she's gone on a journey to trace this child. Due diligence was not done.
Due diligence was not properly done as it should. How about, at what point do you now tell the child
that they're adopted?
Yes. And how do you start that conversation? Perhaps you can pick it up next time, because right now we have to cross over to Tatu City, that is in Ruiru, where President Dr. Ruto is there. This is a Twiga Foods Limited in Tatu City, Ruiru. Watch.
Honorable governors present, excellence ambassadors and high commissioners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with a gracious permission, Your Excellency, allow me to invite the founder and the group CEO to make his remarks. Your Excellency, with your permission, sir.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, good morning.
All right, that is in Tatu City, Ruiru, where the official launch of a Twiga Foods Distribution Center is currently happening in that particular place. Of course, President Dr. Ruto is in attendance, and the moment he begins speaking, we'll definitely just cross over there to listening to what message he has. But as we begin to round up on our conversation here in studio, let me just pick it up with you on that one. Maybe you can just tell us also from your own experience, and at what point you prepare, when you start now telling the child that, yes, I'm your mother, but not like your mother, you know? How do you even prepare, first of all, you as a person, mentally, before you even now go to that child? How does this work?
So I think for each child it's different. We've learned that over the years, that each child is uniquely them. There's some children who you tell and they'll be like, okay, that's fine, that was news, thank you. But there are many things you can do. One, as a parent, read a lot, so that you learn from other people's experiences. Because you also don't want to go and fumble and make the child feel a little less. For my daughter and I, we watch a lot of cartoons that have that theme. So the child was brought, there's this cartoon she likes called Tots, where these children are brought home by a pelican, and yeah, they're dropped at their parents' houses. So in her mind, that happens. It's normal. So and then we have this whole conversation about bone of the tummy and bone of the heart. So depending on the approach that you know your child best. So for us guys, we are more of a movie type, lesson type thing. So we do Bible stories on adoption. We talk about how Jesus adopts us into his family. As in, we have a whole lot of conversation around it.
This is like in preparation?
In preparation.
Okay.
And then now she kind of starts figuring out things. And then once you tell her, just be prepared for, like, there are usually so many questions. So she'll ask you, and my other mother is where? What happened? So prepare in your mind a sanitized version of this story, because you also don't want to give her, she's 6, like my daughter is 6, you can't give her stories of, you know, you were found on the streets, you were dumped. No. So you'll tell her, no, your mommy couldn't take care of you, but then she really loved you, and, you know, she gave you up. And we welcomed you, we love you, we accept you for who you are. As in, there's a lot of affirmation. You keep affirming and reaffirming and affirming and reaffirming, especially about the loving and the care, and that, you know, she's important to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
You know, it's really quite a journey, but this is a path you choose.
Yes.
And heaven just makes it easy for you.
Yes.
At the end of the day. And thank you so much for coming and just also sharing with us your story. We greatly appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Yeah, right.
That is Lydia Diho, who's a wealth manager, of course, talking to us about parenting and child adoption, and of course also just using her own personal story and the journey she's been through and she's gone through in this process of child adoption as well as parenting. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately Good Morning Kenya. We now want to sit ground to that particular launch happening in Tatu City. That is the official launch of Twiga Foods Distribution Center. President Dr. William Ruto is also in attendance in this particular event. We just want to cross over there and listen in.